RJ was just an ordinary high school student who loved Marvel movies, hanging out with his friends, and occasionally breaking the rules to catch the latest blockbuster. But one reckless decision, to bunk class and watch Avengers, Endgame, set off a chain of events he never could have imagined. What starts as a thrilling day out ends in disaster when a truck, driven by a bizarre godlike figure claiming to be Yam, plows into RJ. Instead of waking up in a hospital, RJ finds himself in a hellish realm of fire and lava, face to face with the eccentric deity who accidentally claimed his life. Now, to make amends for the mix-up, the god offers RJ a deal: reincarnation into a new life, with his memories intact at age 15, and the power to choose one artifact from the multiverse. Without thinking, RJ blurts out the legendary Omnitrix. Thrown into a new world with the ultimate alien shifting device at his fingertips, RJ must navigate the challenges of his second life. Can he master the power of the Omnitrix and uncover the secrets of this new world, or will his second chance come with even greater risks than his first? Find out in this thrilling blend of reincarnation, action, and multiverse madness where one fanboy's dreams come true, but at a cost he never saw coming. Hello, everyone. Omni Sensei here with What If I Was Reborn in Marvel as Ben 10. Part 1. If you enjoy this kind of content, please smash the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Don't forget to check out the original story linked in the description. I hope you enjoy listening to it. Class is over. The next class starts in 5 minutes, announced our homeroom teacher. I sighed with relief, slouching in my chair. RJ. My best friend nudged me. The teacher's gone. Let's go before the next one comes in. I grinned and stood up. Is it finally happening? Yes, man. Let's go. I and my 3 friends quickly got up from our bench, trying to make as little noise as possible. But as we made our way to the door, our classmates started noticing us. Faster, guys, or we'll miss the movie, I whispered urgently. Yes, we were bunking class. For what, you ask? A movie. Not just any movie, Marvel's Avengers, Endgame. Today was the day. The culmination of 10 years of Marvel movies. Getting tickets was next to impossible, especially here in India, where Infinity War made Marvel explode in popularity. But somehow, we managed it. Man, that movie was incredible, my friend said as we exited the theater. Incredible? It was a blockbuster. I replied. That snap, it broke me. Yeah bro, my other friend chimed in, still wiping his eyes. But what's next? Iron Man's gone. Who's going to take his place? Maybe his daughter? I suggested. Who knows? Anyway, I'm grabbing my bike. Bring something to eat. I'll wait outside. As I stood by my bike, I saw a truck speeding toward me. For a moment, I froze. The driver was yelling something weird. Yam ha ham. Yam ha ham. What the heck? Was he cosplaying as a god? He had horns on his head and everything. Is this guy for real? I muttered. Before I could react, the truck hit me. When I opened my eyes, everything around me was red. Pools of lava bubbled everywhere, and the heat was suffocating. Hey mortal! A voice boomed. I whipped my head left and right, trying to find the source. Up here, idiot! I looked up and saw him, the guy who had slammed a truck into me. He was lounging on a floating chair, sipping something through a straw, with a pair of goggles on his eyes. You! I shouted, still in shock. He waved dismissively. Shut your mouth, or something might fly into it. Why did you kill me? Was my time up? I blurted, my brain struggling to process everything. Not really, he said casually. It was your friend's time, actually. But I came a bit early and hit you by mistake. You were just supposed to end up in the hospital." I stared at him blankly. "Is my friend safe?" I asked, hoping for good news. The so-called god shrugged. "Nope. After I realized my mistake, I took a U-turn and hit him too. Can't have a bad record, you know." "Are you serious?" "Yep. It happens," he said nonchalantly. "So where is he now?" "Already on his way to the next life." "And me? What's going to happen to me?" "Well, since it was my mistake, I'll compensate you." "Compensate? Does that mean I'll go back?" "Nah, that's impossible." I groaned. "Then what?" "I'll throw you into reincarnation," he said. "You'll retain your memories, starting from age 15. As a bonus, I'll let you pick one artifact from the multiverse. Any artifact you want." I blinked. "Wait, there's a multiverse?" "Obviously. Now hurry up and pick. I don't have all day." My mind raced. Any artifact from the multiverse? The possibilities were endless. But there was one thing, one legendary object, that popped into my head. "The Omnitrix," I blurted out. "Done," he said instantly. "Wait, what do you mean done?" Before I could argue, everything went black. As I groaned and woke up, my head was spinning. Ah shit, my head is spinning. The hell, it hurts. Oh, so that's what happened. I remembered. It's been 14 years since that day. I stood up, looking around my room. It had a bed, a desk, and many books. Am I a nerd? No, damn it, I'm as average as I used to be. It's my little sister's books. She studies a lot. But hell, this is Marvel. Of all places, God had to throw me here? Are you serious? Now wait, you guys might be wondering what's the deal. Idiot, it's freaking Marvel with superheroes. Yay, okay, but do you get it? I've lived here for the past 14 years as a normal teen with a loving family. And now I know this world is in deep shit, trouble after trouble, and a freaking purple bald monkey will snap his fingers to kill half the population, including my family. Ha shit. Anyway, I'll think of it later. I walked up to the mirror to see myself. Damn, I have a good face, just that my body is shit, skinny as hell. I don't even work out. But well, my eyes are green, just like Ben's, but my hair is black. Guess I got it from my mother. She's Asian, and my father is blonde. Smooth skin but shit body. And you know the main thing? My name is also Ben. My full name is Benjamin Kirby Tennyson. Quite the coincidence, I say. Anyway, that Reaper did give me the Omnitrix. How did I get it? Just had to think of it, and boom, in my hand just like that. No inventory, no system, no shit, no originality. What can I expect from a guy who only enjoys killing people? Well, here I have in my hand the Omnitrix. It's the classic version style. It started to glow, and a voice came from it. DNA detected, DNA matched. My eyes were popping out of their sockets, the feeling in my heart sending chills down my spine. Who doesn't dream of such in their childhood? The time Ben got the Omnitrix, dreaming like I should also get it. It started to flow out of my hand, then floated to my wrist and got stuck there. The hologram came out, and it itself got dialed. The hell shit. A brilliant emerald light enveloped me, bathing the surroundings in a surreal glow. In an instant, my entire form began to change, bones shifting, muscles expanding. My height skyrocketed to an imposing 12 feet, and my skin took on a crimson hue, reminiscent of forged iron. With a mighty roar, four colossal arms burst forth, each rippling with raw power. My eyes glowed an intense green, a reflection of the immense strength that now coursed through my veins. My voice, now deep and resonant, echoed with authority as I flexed my newfound might. Every movement exuded power and precision, my 4 arms moving in perfect harmony. I was a living juggernaut. Then I said, 4 arms, and I was half bent. I mistakenly moved a little, making a big sound. My mother's voice came from downstairs. "Ben, what are you doing? What's that sound?" "Oh shit, I messed up." She yelled again, "Ben." "Oh, she's walking up the stairs." I started panicking. She got closer to the door. I hit my hand on the middle of my Omnitrix just in time. She came in and said, "What was that green light?" I said, "Nothing, Mom. It came from my watch, if that's what you're saying." When did you get a watch?" Sweat was dripping from my head. "Oh, that. I got it from the money I was saving." Okay, but don't make another sound." And she went downstairs. Phew, I almost got caught. Damn it, which watch automatically starts? I guess mine. Well, let's sit down and note the things I should do and not do. I took a notebook from my desk and started writing. 1. Should I do the hero work? Nah, not for now. I know if I do that, S.H.I.E.L.D. is gonna catch me. Those guys have cameras and satellites tracking me. Until I do something about that, it's a no-no. If they know, Hydra will also know. Big no-no. 2. Authority and money. Well, if you have deep pockets and connections, you can do many things in this world. And here's the thing, this world is still backward in tech. Even though Tony is a billionaire, he's in energy and weapon dealings, and it's 2004. After 4 years, he will be kidnapped. This world doesn't have manga, Harry Potter, GOT, and many more. No games, nothing at all. I have a big opportunity. Baby steps, Ben, baby steps. First, to do all these things, I need money, and the only easy and simple way I think is manga. But there's a thing, I don't know how to draw manga. What can I do? Then I got an idea, the AI. Yep, AI. As I remember, in my world, they were going to launch a website where you can make an animated movie using prompts. And I just want to make manga, well, with color, of course. But this world's laptops are not that good with processing. Well, all that's okay. I have to look if I have any alien with a big brain, brainstorm or jury rig. Let's see. I started searching in my watch, and wow, holy shit, it solves all problems. The smartest being in 5 galaxies, gray matter. Well, it's Azimuth who is the smartest. Well, it is what it is. I took the notebook and pencil and struck the dial. It's hero time. My body began to shrink rapidly, the towering figure of a human boy condensing into a form no more than 5 inches tall. My skin turned a sleek gray-blue, smooth and almost amphibious in texture. Large, inquisitive eyes replaced my human ones, capable of seeing in great detail even in the dimmest light. My limbs, now slender and nimble, ended in small, dexterous fingers perfect for intricate work. In this form, known as gray matter, my mind was razor-sharp. I could process information at incredible speeds, solve complex puzzles, and think my way out of the trickiest situations. Let's write down the things I need for high processing power. I can't afford to buy it, so I have to make one at home. Let's make a quantum fluid processor. Let's design it like this. I don't have to worry about being an idiot. The more I use this alien, the more knowledgeable my human mind will get. At one point, I will be as good as the world's scientists. I should assemble it like this, a custom motherboard with integrated microfluidic channels to ensure the quantum fluid processor could interface seamlessly with other components. DDR and RAM. A modified PSU for the power source. An old fish tank pump, modified radiator, and a set of cooling fans to make an advanced cooling system. A graphics card. Got to steal some of it. Yeah, steal it. I'm not gonna go digging in garbage cans to find it. Some of it can come from my savings, but for the rest, gotta steal them all. Hee hee. Now that my work is done, I transformed back. Let's go down and eat something. Having been thinking for a while, so much knowledge in this much less time makes you hungry. I was through the stairs and saw my sister on the sofa watching the TV. It was a Captain America show. They were showing his exploits, all those things they did to defeat Hydra, but reality is often different. Mum, I am hungry. Just a minute, it's getting ready. My sister eyed me from the sofa. Oh, look who decided to show his face. Yours one and only handsome brother. More like a scarecrow. I felt an ache in my heart. Just you wait. Before college starts, I will have 10 packs. I have heard about 6 packs and some saying 8. Where did you bring the extra 2, bro, you dummy? Well, my dear sister, unlike you who we adopted, I have our family genes, which can give 10 packs. Mummy. Ben, stop it, or I will tell your father. I suddenly had a chill in my spine. Mom, I will not say it again. Please don't tell Dad. You better behave. My sister started laughing. Laugh all you want. I will show you. I moved and sat at the dining table. Mom, Dad has not come yet? No, Ben. There was a fire in a house, so he is late. So right, I didn't tell you. My father is a firefighter. We have a decent house with 2 floors. We don't live in luxury, but hey, that's why I am gonna start manga and move out from here. Brother, when did you get a watch, and why don't I see any time on it? I nervously looked at my sister and said, that's my style. Seriously, I said that. Dumbo. Saying that, she started eating. If you knew what it was, you wouldn't say that, I thought. At the same time, the door to the house opened, and Father came. My sister came off the table and started running towards my father. Papa. Oh, my sweet darling. Well, she is 10 years old. Then I said, welcome home, Father. Haha, so how was the day? Just like every day. Okay, enough talking, you two. Honey, you should wash yourself, said my mother. Okay. At the dining table, Dad, I want to build a computer. My father stopped eating and looked at me. Ben, we don't have enough money to build a computer. Oh, no worry, Dad. I can build it through my savings. There are pieces thrown here and there. I can build from them. When did you learn that? I am smart, Dad. Okay, do whatever you want. Thanks. Just be careful. Yes. After dinner, I went to my room. Tomorrow is gonna be a big day. Let's get some sleep. After dozing off, I woke up at 6 in the morning. Yes, 6. Gotta make a body. I got down, washed my face, came up, and started doing push-ups. My body may be skinny, it doesn't mean I don't have stamina. I play a lot of football, soccer in college, so I have great stamina. What I need is muscle. And how do you gain muscle? You break muscle. At the 5th push-up, I collapsed. Yeah, shit body. So next, sit-ups, abs, and all indoor styles. After 30 minutes of training, I'm exhausted, feeling pain in my arms and legs. But you know what? I had a loophole. Yep, Omnitrix. You know what? When I transform back from an alien, it heals my body. Well, it doesn't apply in fights where you have spent all your energy and are exhausted, but by only transforming back, a little bit of the Omnitrix's energy heals you. So, I can break the muscle and build the muscle quickly with no muscle soreness or pain all night. Aren't I a genius? When he wants to be lazy. After 4 hours of gym montage, which is impossible on someone's first day, I go for a bath. It's a good thing I had brought food to eat, or I would have died from hunger. I found out later that Omnitrix doesn't give deposit energy. It just accelerates our healing faster, and it freaking hurts. So much for a genius. I guess it's true, no pain, no gain. After morning breakfast at home, I got out of the house, took the bicycle, and started to find a shop to steal. A rich shop. Can't steal from the poor, they cough up blood. Why do I feel I am becoming not a hero but an anti-hero? Nope, it's for the greater good, my greater good. So, after searching for 2 hours, I got my spot. Well, I got distracted by beauties. Cough cough, gotta change that habit. I opened the door and came to the reception. There was this old man. Damn, I thought there would be a lady. Maybe next time. Okay, I muttered and asked for a graphics card. It took all my money. Yep, all of it. After buying it, I noticed where the other things were stored. Not on display, obviously, the warehouse. I wasn't gonna take anything from the display. That's too obvious when it goes missing. I stepped into an alley and dialed my Omnitrix. Time to choose an alien. As the light intensified, my body began to change rapidly. My skin turned a sleek, dark blue with black accents, giving me an otherworldly appearance. My feet elongated into wheel-like structures, perfect for high-speed travel. My hands transformed into three-fingered claws, designed for agility and grip. A long whip-like tail sprouted from my back, aiding in balance and maneuverability. As my helmet-like headgear formed, it covered my now reptilian face, complete with sharp, angular features. My eyes, bright green and cat-like, gleamed with a fierce intensity. With every breath, I felt the surge of speed coursing through my veins. I had transformed into XLR8. All right, time to move like a blur. I darted into the store, zoomed past the warehouse, and grabbed what I needed. Then, I rushed back home to the storeroom. Taking out the monitor and PC, I threw the cardboard into the dustbin. Next, I took out some oil paints and, in a blur, painted over everything to make it look old. Yep, gotta show it secondhand, you know, I muttered to myself. I ran back to the alley, grabbed the RAM and DDR, stuffed them into my bag, and transformed back into my human form. But as I stood there, shame hit me like a truck. Damn. I'll transfer some millions into his account when I'm rich. I swear. Cycling back home, I walked up the stairs when my mom spotted me carrying the PC and monitor. She looked at me and said, "Where did you get this trash? Does it even work?" "Yes, Mom. I can make it work." "Oh, XLR8 isn't just fast. He's a great painter. It really looks like trash now." I started with the processor. The existing one? Nah, it wasn't good enough for performance. So I began making a quantum fluid processor using old motherboards, cooling systems, liquid cooling kits, and other salvaged items. I designed it so that liquid could flow through microchannels on a custom-built motherboard, acting as both a coolant and a conductor for electrical signals. Carefully, I modified an old motherboard to create microfluidic channels, soldering components I had scavenged. I filled the cooling system with a conductive liquid I formulated using household chemicals and cooled it to enhance its properties. While I was working, my mother peeked from the kitchen and shook her head. She probably thought I had gone nuts. Once I had all the components laid out in front of me, both the ones I bought and the ones salvaged, I took a deep breath. "All right, Ben, time to make this happen." The workspace was a chaotic blend of salvaged parts, custom designs, and a few alien-inspired prototypes I'd been toying with. It looked like something out of a mad scientist's lab, but it was organized chaos. I'd planned every step for weeks, sketching diagrams, simulating circuits, and testing prototypes. The journey to this point hadn't been smooth. Far from it. Each piece of hardware told its own story of trial, error, and frustration. The day started with a trek through the city's industrial district. I'd learned that appliance repair shops often tossed out old, broken equipment. The trick was to get there before the garbage collectors did. As I rummaged through piles of discarded appliances, the stale metallic smell filled the air. "Come on, give me something good," I muttered, prying open the back of an old washing machine. Inside, I found a power regulator that looked intact. Jackpot. By the end of the day, I'd gathered a decent haul: circuit boards from a microwave, copper wiring from an old air conditioner, and a partially functional cooling fan. The satisfaction of finding usable parts was tempered by exhaustion. My back ached, and my hands were grimy, but I couldn't stop smiling. These parts were the foundation of my build. Back at the room, I spent the entire day cleaning and testing the salvaged components. Each piece had to be carefully inspected for damage. The power regulator worked after some soldering, but the cooling fan was beyond repair. I tossed it into the scrap pile with a frustrated sigh. "Can't win them all," I said, wiping sweat from my forehead. By evening, I'd salvaged enough usable components to start assembling the motherboard. The process was slow. Every solder joint needed precision, and one wrong move could ruin hours of work. Twice, I accidentally bridged connections. causing short circuits that sent sparks flying. My dad would always come to see and help me in my things. When he saw I knowing my stuff, he only came once or twice. Damn it! I yelled, slamming my tools onto the table. I had to take a break to calm down before starting again. Patience, I reminded myself. This wasn't just a project. It was a test of endurance. Day 3, the quantum fluid processor was the centerpiece of the build, and designing it was no small feat. The microfluidic channels required nanometer precision. I spent hours hunched over the design software, tweaking the layout and simulating fluid dynamics. When the 3D printer finished producing the prototype, I eagerly inspected it. My excitement was short-lived. One of the channels was too narrow, causing the conductive liquid to clog. No, I muttered, my hands shaking as I examined the flaw. I'd wasted an entire day's work. Frustration bubbled over, and I slammed my fist on the table. After a few minutes of wallowing in self-pity, I took a deep breath. Mistakes were part of the process. I adjusted the design and printed a new prototype overnight. Day 4, with a functional quantum fluid processor in hand, I began assembling the motherboard. Aligning the processor with the board required surgical precision. My hands trembled as I filled the microchannels with conductive liquid. "Please don't leak," I whispered, holding my breath as the liquid began to flow. To my relief, it worked perfectly. The liquid cooled the processor and transmitted signals as intended. I ran a quick diagnostic and almost cried with relief when the results came back positive. Next, I soldered the RAM modules. These were salvaged from an old server, and I'd spent hours refurbishing them. The first module worked flawlessly, but the second one refused to boot. After several attempts, I realized the module was irreparably damaged. Frustrated, I scoured my parts bin for a replacement. Day 5, the graphics card was one of the few components I'd bought new, but it needed upgrades to meet my standards. I replaced the stock thermal paste with my conductive liquid formula and added a mini liquid cooling system. Integrating it with the quantum fluid processor required precise modifications to the heatsink. "You're going to be a beast," I said, tightening the final screw. When I powered it on, the card ran cooler and faster than its stock configuration. Success. Day 6, the storage system was a Frankenstein creation of salvaged SSDs and HDDs. Rigging them into a custom RAID setup was a nightmare. The wiring alone took hours, and every test seemed to reveal a new problem. "Why won't you just work?" I groaned, staring at the tangle of cables. At one point, a loose connection caused the entire system to crash, erasing hours of data. I felt like giving up, but I reminded myself why I was doing this. Failure wasn't an option. After several hours of troubleshooting, the RAID setup finally worked. It wasn't pretty, but it was fast and reliable. Day 7, the power supply was a patchwork of salvaged components. Getting it to deliver stable voltage was a delicate balancing act. Twice, I accidentally overloaded the circuit, causing sparks to fly. My heart raced as I quickly shut everything down. "Don't explode. Don't explode." I repeated like a mantra as I connected the final wires. When the system powered on without issue, I let out a relieved laugh. Week 2, with the core system complete, I turned my attention to the battery. Traditional methods wouldn't cut it, so I designed a hybrid battery using alien-inspired technology. The battery used conductive liquid and magnetic field stabilization to store and discharge electricity efficiently. Recharging the battery presented a unique challenge. Plugging it into the grid would send the electricity bill through the roof, so I devised an unconventional solution. Standing in front of the battery, I braced myself and triggered the transformation sequence. Electricity surged through my veins as my body shifted. My human features dissolved, replaced by a sleek, dark blue form with glowing yellow circuitry-like patterns. My hands ended in claw-like fingers, crackling with raw power. In this form, I became a living generator, charging the battery directly. "I'll never get tired of this," Buzzshock said, his voice crackling like static. The energy transfer was seamless, and within minutes, the battery was fully charged. Week 3. This week was spent fine-tuning the system. Every component had to work in perfect harmony. I ran stress tests, monitored temperatures, and optimized performance. The quantum fluid processor performed beyond expectations, and the custom cooling system kept everything stable. When the system was finally complete, I connected the battery and powered it on. The machine hummed to life, glowing faintly as the conductive liquid flowed through its veins. Diagnostics confirmed that it was ready for action. Leaning back in my chair, I couldn't help but grin. 3 weeks of blood, sweat, and tears had paid off. With all the components in place, it was time to assemble the case. Remember those oil paints from earlier? I decided to give the whole PC a rustic beat-up look to match the monitor. Using XLR8 speed, I painted it with a distressed metal finish in minutes. Trash on the outside, treasure on the inside. The hardware was ready. But there was a problem. The world I lived in didn't have an operating system capable of unleashing the PC's full power. I stared at the blank screen, hands on my hips. Okay, Ben. You've built the fastest computer. Now you need an OS to match it. Day 1. Creating an operating system from scratch was no small task. I started with the kernel, the core that would manage all hardware and software interactions. Using old programming books and reference materials, I wrote the first lines of code late into the night. Lightweight, efficient, and adaptable, I mumbled, my fingers flying across the keyboard. The first test was a disaster. The kernel couldn't even handle basic commands without crashing. Frustration built up as I debugged line after line of code, only to hit a wall again. By 3 a.m., I slumped back in my chair, staring at the screen. Why am I even doing this? I muttered. But deep down, I knew. This wasn't just about the computer, it was about proving I could achieve something extraordinary. Day 2, the next day, I approached the kernel with a fresh mindset. I rewrote large sections of code, simplifying processes and optimizing resource allocation. After hours of testing, the kernel finally stabilized. The sense of accomplishment was overwhelming. I let out a triumphant cheer, startling myself with how loud it was in the silent room. Step 1 done, I said, grinning. Day 3, the kernel was just the beginning. The next challenge was designing a user interface. I wanted something intuitive yet futuristic. Inspired by sci-fi movies and alien tech, I sketched out ideas for a holographic interface with voice and gesture recognition. Implementing the UI was a tedious process. I started with basic text commands, gradually adding graphical elements. The first holographic prototype was clunky, "Why won't you work?" I groaned, running my hands through my hair. Hours turned into days as I fine-tuned the interface. Each failure taught me something new, and by the end of the week, I had a sleek, responsive design that felt like it belonged in the future. Day 4, no operating system is complete without drivers to control the hardware. This was one of the most tedious parts of the project. Each hardware component required custom drivers to communicate with the OS. Node unresponsive. The graphics card driver was particularly troublesome. I spent an entire day troubleshooting compatibility issues, only to discover a single line of incorrect code. "You've got to be kidding me," I muttered, staring at the error on the screen. Fixing it felt like pulling a thorn out of my brain, painful but relieving. Day 5, with the system coming together, I turned my attention to security. I couldn't risk anyone hacking into my masterpiece. Using advanced algorithms and inspiration from alien encryption methods, I developed a security protocol so strong that even I struggled to crack it during testing. There were moments of paranoia as I imagined the potential misuse of my system's power. "This has to be foolproof," I whispered, doubling down on the encryption layers. Week 2, the second week, was dedicated to rigorous testing. I simulated real-world scenarios, pushing the system to its limits. Crashes and bugs were inevitable, but each one brought me closer to perfection. One night, after a particularly frustrating crash, I threw my pen across the room. "Why does this keep happening?" I shouted, my voice echoing in the empty space. After taking a deep breath, I returned to the code. Step by step, I traced the issue and fixed it. The satisfaction of seeing the system run smoothly again was worth the struggle. Week 3, by the third week, the OS was almost complete. I added finishing touches, like customizable themes and a voice assistant. I named it Windows 11X, a nod to its advanced capabilities. The final test was nerve-wracking. As I pressed the power button, the screen lit up with the holographic interface I'd spent weeks perfecting. Navigating through the menus felt surreal. It was fast, responsive, and unlike anything I'd ever seen. Leaning back in my chair, I smiled. This isn't just an operating system. It's a masterpiece. The sound of success as the soft chime echoed through the room. My sister called out, "Ben, what was that sound?" I leaned back in my chair, a satisfied grin spreading across my face. "That," I said, turning towards her dramatically, "is the sound of Windows." Windows. She tilted her head, confusion clear on her face. "Yep," I said, pointing at the screen with pride. "Your genius brother has officially built an operating system." Her eyes widened, and she leaned closer, trying to get a better look at the holographic interface glowing on the monitor. "Really? You actually made this?" "Of course," I replied, puffing out my chest. "Did you ever doubt me?" She stared at me for a moment, her expression unreadable, before breaking into laughter. "Yeah, I doubt you all the time, but this is actually impressive." "Impressive?" I said, feigning offense. "This is revolutionary. A once-in-a-lifetime masterpiece." All right, she said, rolling her eyes but unable to hide her smile. "Show me what it can do, Mr. Genius." I spun back to the monitor, basking in my accomplishment. My sister, still leaning in, raised an eyebrow. "So what can it do?" I hesitated, scratching the back of my head sheepishly. Well, nothing at the moment." "Nothing," she repeated, her expression dropping into deadpan disbelief. "Yeah," I admitted, laughing nervously. "There aren't any games or software available yet to test its capabilities. But trust me, it's powerful." She crossed her arms, smirking. "So you're telling me you made an operating system that can't do anything?" I waved her off, trying to salvage my pride. "Hey, genius takes time. Greatness isn't built overnight. Just wait, when I'm done, this will be the most advanced system this world has ever seen." Sure, she teased, standing up and ruffling my hair. "Keep telling yourself that, Mr. Revolutionary Genius." The next big project with my operating system complete, I set my sights on my next project, something truly groundbreaking. "I'm going to create the most powerful AI," I whispered to myself, the room silent except for the faint hum of my makeshift quantum fluid processor. But this wouldn't just be any AI. No, it would be an emotional, empathetic companion, one that could never betray me. My mind wandered to Tony Stark and the disaster that was Ultron. "I won't make the same mistakes," I vowed. However, there was one glaring problem. I didn't have the money to afford vast servers or cloud storage to house such a powerful AI. That's when inspiration struck. Using alien technology from the Omnitrix, I began building a compact data storage device, a machine capable of housing my AI entirely offline. Ben sat cross-legged on the floor of his cluttered bedroom, surrounded by a sea of salvaged electronics and alien tech components he made. A dim desk lamp flickered above him, casting uneven light on his blueprints pinned haphazardly to the wall. In the center of his makeshift workspace lay a partially assembled core, a shimmering orb with intricate etchings and a faint glow emanating from within. "This is it," Ben murmured, his voice laced with determination. "The moment I stop dreaming about it and actually build it." He grabbed a soldering iron, adjusting its temperature. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he began connecting the delicate circuits inside the core. Every wire he soldered into place, every microchip he embedded, felt like a step closer to bringing his vision to life. Ben spent the first day sketching the design for Baymax. The AI he envisioned wasn't just functional, it was empathetic, intuitive, and able to assist him in every aspect of his projects. He wanted an AI that could think, feel, and evolve. By turning in gray matter, Ben designed a compact AI core. The core would house Baymax's consciousness and function as its brain. Unlike conventional AI systems requiring massive server farms, Baymax would rely on quantum computing and alien-inspired data compression techniques. The design incorporated both human technology and home-made alien components he'd painstakingly made over the past few months. First, I'll need to stabilize the power core, Ben noted, drawing arrows and annotations around his blueprint. If this thing doesn't have a stable energy source, it'll blow up before it even wakes up. On the third day, Ben ventured out to nearby junkyards and alleys, scouring for discarded electronics. He sifted through piles of old appliances, broken drones, and outdated computers, pulling out anything with salvageable components. His haul included a couple of damaged motherboards, a handful of capacitors, and a surprisingly intact battery pack from a scrapped electric vehicle. "I can make this work," he muttered, loading the parts into his backpack. He avoided the curious stares of passers-by, brushing off their questioning looks. Returning home, he spread his finds across his workspace, analyzing each component. This capacitor should handle the power spikes. And these microchips? Perfect for neural pathways, Ben said, his mind already racing with how he'd integrate them. By the end of the first week, Ben focused entirely on constructing the AI core. This was the heart of Baymax, where all processing and decision-making would take place. He used a sphere-shaped casing made from metal, incredibly durable, and capable of withstanding high-energy outputs. He worked meticulously to install quantum processors within the sphere, wiring them to a custom energy distribution system. This system ensured that every processor received a steady flow of energy without overheating. Ben integrated liquid cooling channels into the design, using the same conductive liquid he developed for his quantum fluid processor. "Come on. Just a little more," Ben muttered as he carefully poured the liquid into the channels. It flowed smoothly, glowing faintly as it absorbed and distributed heat. Day 10 with the hardware taking shape, Ben shifted his focus to programming Baymax's consciousness. He wanted Baymax to be more than a typical AI assistant. It had to learn, adapt, and form connections. "I need a neural net capable of self-learning," Ben muttered, typing furiously at his keyboard. He referenced alien coding patterns from the Omnitrix's database, combining them with human machine learning algorithms. Day after day, he wrote and rewrote the AI's core code. He programmed an emotional framework, allowing Baymax to recognize and respond to human emotions. He even created a humor module, giving the AI the ability to crack jokes and lighten tense moments. "You're going to be more than just lines of code," Ben whispered to the flickering lines of text on his screen. "You'll be my partner." Not everything went smoothly. On the 15th day, while testing Baymax's core functionality, the entire system shorted out. Sparks flew, and a faint trail of smoke curled up from the core. "No, no, no!" Ben yelled, scrambling to unplug the power source. He sat back, staring at the smoldering mess in front of him. What did I do wrong? Frustration clawed at him as he dissected the core, searching for the issue. He realized that the quantum processors were drawing too much power, overwhelming the distribution system. It was a design flaw, a mistake that could have destroyed weeks of work. "All right, Ben," he said, taking a deep breath. "Learn from it. Fix it." He spent the next 2 days reworking the power distribution system, adding redundant circuits and installing better voltage regulators. The process was grueling, but by the end of it, the core was more stable than ever. He worked tirelessly to assemble the final pieces. He connected the AI core to the data storage device he'd built, a compact, high-capacity module capable of storing vast amounts of information. He then integrated holographic projectors, allowing Baymax to display visual data and interact with the physical world. Using salvaged drone parts, Ben added mobility to the AI core. Small propulsion units allowed it to float, giving Baymax the ability to move around independently. On the 20th day, Ben sat cross-legged in front of the finished device. The AI core gleamed under the dim light, its surface etched with glowing circuitry patterns. He double-checked every connection, every wire, and every component. Finally, he took a deep breath and connected the power source. The room filled with a soft hum as the device came to life. Blue light pulsed through the core, and the holographic projectors activated, casting faint shapes into the air. Ben leaned forward, heart pounding. "Come on, Baymax," he whispered. "Wake up." The glow intensified, And then, for the first time, the AI spoke. Its voice was soft, calm, and filled with a faint curiosity. "Hello, Creator." Ben froze, a wave of emotion washing over him. He had done it. Months of work, endless setbacks, and countless hours of effort had culminated in this moment. "Hey there, Baymax," he said, his voice trembling with pride. "Welcome to the world." Over the next few days, Ben tested Baymax's functionality. The AI quickly adapted to its surroundings, analyzing data and learning from Ben's interactions. It cracked jokes, asked thoughtful questions, and even offered insights into Ben's projects. Ben showed his AI to his parents. They'd dumbstruck and freaked out seeing floating spherical objects specking. "Mom, Dad, don't be scared, it's an AI like those robots, but just advanced." "Baymax, what's the status of the cooling system?" Ben asked one evening. "The liquid temperature is stable at 42 degrees Celsius, Baymax replied. "Also, your sister appears to have borrowed your soldering iron." Hearing it, my sister hid behind my father and looked to Baymax by peeking. Ben laughed. "Looks like you're already keeping me on my toes." By the end of the third week, Baymax had become more than just a tool, it was a companion. As he sat in his cluttered room, staring at the glowing AI core, Ben couldn't help but smile. In a dimly lit room, the soft glow of a computer screen flickered against the walls. Ben sat hunched in his chair, his face illuminated by the vibrant colors of a movie playing on the monitor. He absent-mindedly nibbled on a bag of chips, his eyes glued to the screen. It wasn't his usual habit to kick back like this. But tonight was different. You might be wondering why Ben, the boy genius, wasn't busy working on his next groundbreaking project. The truth? He'd already done something extraordinary earlier that day, something that had left him questioning his abilities and laughing at his own overconfidence. Earlier, Ben had decided to tackle an ambitious project, recreating the first volume of Dragon Ball Z. Fueled by a surge of creative energy, he had poured himself into the task like a man possessed. Words flowed from his fingertips as if he were channeling the legendary Akira Toriyama himself. Chapter by chapter, scene by scene. But the real challenge was yet to come. After finishing the script, Ben turned to Baymax, his self-built AI companion, for the generating illustrations to accompany his masterpiece. The AI had grown significantly since its creation, now capable of producing visual art based on textual input. Or so Ben thought. "All right, Baymax," he had said confidently, leaning back in his chair. "Let's make some magic." Its voice calm and measured. "Understood, Creator." Initializing image generation. The first image appeared on the screen. Ben's confident grin faltered. What is that?" The image was a chaotic amalgamation of shapes and colors, somewhere between an abstract painting and a fever dream. Goku looked like a malformed blob with hair resembling a pineapple, while Vegeta's iconic scouter was merged into his face like a cyborg experiment gone wrong. No, Ben groaned, holding his head in his hands. "This isn't Dragon Ball Z. This is baby drawing with crayons." He quickly opened Baymax's code to debug the issue, his fingers flying over the keyboard. After several hours of analysis, the problem became clear. Baymax didn't have enough reference material to work with. The AI's learning model was starved for data, and the limited internet of 2004 didn't help matters. Even though Baymax was self-learning, the resources available to it were primitive by modern standards. Ben leaned back in his chair, defeated. "Guess I underestimated the amount of input you need, buddy." Baymax's voice chimed in. "Creator, learning is a process. Mistakes pave the way for improvement." Yeah, Ben muttered, rubbing his temples. "Tell that to Akira Toriyama. If he saw this, he'd jump across the multiverse just to obliterate me." Frustrated and in need of a break, Ben decided to take a step back. He scrolled through his movie library and clicked on a title that had been sitting in his backlog for ages. As the opening credits rolled, he dimmed the lights in his room until only the faint glow of the screen remained. As I sat watching the movie, completely absorbed in the story, the door to my room suddenly slammed open. The harsh overhead light flooded the room, making me squint and wince. Standing there was my mom, hands on her hips, looking every bit as formidable as she always did when she was about to scold me. Ben, she barked. When are you going to pack your bag? Tomorrow is your first day at school. Oh no. How had I completely forgotten about that? I had just transferred from my old school to Midtown High, and it seemed like a distant concern until now. School, a place where time crawls and life feels like it's on pause. But I couldn't say that to my mom. No way. She'd probably smack me into next week. Mom, I was just about to pack it, I said, putting on my best innocent face. She eyed me suspiciously, but didn't press further. Good. Do it quickly and go to bed. You have to wake up early tomorrow. Yes, Mom, I said with a resigned sigh as she turned and left, closing the door behind her. I switched off the movie, rubbed my face, and looked at the pile of stuff scattered around my room. My school bag was half buried under a stack of notebooks, random wires, and a dismantled circuit board. Reluctantly, I pulled it out and started cramming things inside. Books. I woke up the next morning to the sound of my mom banging on the door. Ben. Get up. You're going to be late for school. Groaning, I rolled out of bed, my hair a mess and my brain still half asleep. I stumbled to the bathroom, washed up, and threw on the first set of clothes I could find. Jeans, a slightly wrinkled t-shirt, and my favorite hoodie. Good enough. Ben, it's getting late. How much longer are you going to take? Mom shouted from downstairs. Coming, Mom. I yelled back, trying to lace up my sneakers as I hopped on one foot. I rushed downstairs, grabbed the sandwich Mom had made for me, and stuffed it in my mouth as I tried to tie my shoelaces properly this time. Ben, at least sit down and eat your food properly, she yelled, waving a spatula at me as I bolted out the door. I ran as fast as I could toward the bus stop, my bag bouncing against my back and the taste of peanut butter and jelly still lingering in my mouth. As I approached, I saw the bus about to pull away. No, no, no. Wait. I yelled, sprinting with all the energy I had. The driver, thankfully, saw me and slowed down. I managed to hop on just as the doors hissed shut behind me. Breathing heavily, I scanned the bus for a seat. Most of the kids were already absorbed in their own conversations or staring at their phones. Breathing heavily, I scanned the bus for a seat. Most of the kids were already absorbed in their own conversations or glued to their phones. That's when my eyes caught two familiar faces, or at least, they looked eerily familiar. One of them had the unmistakable face of Tom Holland. Wait, no. That wasn't Tom Holland. That must be this version's Peter Parker. Sitting beside him was a slightly chubby kid who looked like Ned Leeds from the movies. They were deep in conversation, laughing about something, and I noticed the third seat next to them was empty. Hesitating for a second, I decided to approach them. Hey, I said, my voice slightly breathless from running. Can I sit with you guys? Peter turned his head and looked at me with a warm, friendly expression. Before he could say anything, Ned chimed in, Yeah man, go ahead. As I slid into the seat, Peter gave me a welcoming smile. You new here? Kind of, I replied. I just transferred this year to Midtown High. My name's Ben. Ben Tennyson. Ned grinned. Nice to meet you, Ben. I'm Ned Leeds. And I'm Peter Parker, Peter added, reaching out a hand for a quick shake. I shook his hand, feeling a bit starstruck despite myself. Sure, he wasn't the real Tom Holland, but seeing Peter Parker in person was still surreal. So Ben, Ned said, leaning forward a little, why'd you transfer? Midtown's great and all, but it's not like people are lining up to come here. I shrugged, trying to keep it casual. Family reasons. We moved closer to the city, so it just made sense. Peter nodded, his expression turning thoughtful. Well, Midtown's not so bad once you get used to it. The science department's pretty great. Do you like science? Yeah, I guess. I mess around with tech a lot in my free time. Building stuff, programming, that kind of thing. Ned's eyes lit up. Wait, you're into tech? Like, you build computers and gadgets and stuff? Something like that, I replied with a small grin. I've been working on a few projects at home. Nothing too crazy. Peter raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. Nothing too crazy? That sounds like code for super cool, but I'm too humble to say it. What kind of projects? I hesitated for a second. Should I tell them about Baymax? Probably not. That was way too out there. Instead, I went with a safer example. Just some experimental stuff, like building my own custom PC and trying to write an operating system for it. Stuff to pass the time. Ned whistled, impressed. Dude, that's awesome. I know how to hack though. Peter laughed. Well, Ned and I like tech, so we are always on computer and do programming. Ben smiled. Well, then I made the right friend. We can make something together. The bus ride felt a lot shorter than it usually did. By the time we arrived at Midtown High, I already felt like I'd made 2 solid connections. Ned was easygoing and funny, and Peter had this quiet, thoughtful energy that made him easy to talk to. As we got off the bus, Ned clapped me on the shoulder. You're gonna like it here, Ben. Stick with us, and you'll be fine. Peter nodded. Yeah, Midtown's not so bad. Just watch out for Tony Revolori. Who's Tony Revolori? I asked, already dreading the answer. Just a guy, Peter said, smiling wryly. You'll know him when you see him. Great, I muttered, rolling my eyes. Don't worry, Ned said. If Tony messes with you, we've got your back. As we walked into the classroom, Peter and Ned motioned me to sit with them near the middle row. I settled in, letting my eyes wander around the room. That's when I noticed 2 familiar faces that almost made me do a double take. One of the girls looked just like Zendaya's version of MJ, leaning back in her seat, her expression nonchalant yet somehow full of attitude. Beside her sat a girl who could only be Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy. Her blonde hair framed her face perfectly, and she exuded a quiet confidence that contrasted MJ's laid-back demeanor. Oh great, I thought, feeling a mix of intrigue and amusement. Who's Peter's girlfriend in this universe? MJ or Gwen? I shook my head, trying to push the thought aside. That's Peter's problem for the future. No need to get caught up in it now. Besides, if it comes to that, I could always help him. Peter seemed focused on his notebook, but I noticed a subtle glance from him toward MJ. Ned, on the other hand, was too busy whispering about something to Peter to notice my observations. The classroom chatter died down as the teacher walked in, a middle-aged woman with a professional yet approachable demeanor. She set her bag on the desk and looked at me with a welcoming smile. Class, before we begin today's lesson, we have a new student joining us, she said, gesturing toward me. Ben Tynesian, would you please stand and introduce yourself? I got up, feeling all eyes in the room turn toward me. My heart pounded, but I forced myself to stay calm. Hi everyone. My name's Ben Tennyson. I just transferred here, and I'm looking forward to getting to know you all. Before I could sit back down, a voice from the back interrupted. Hope you don't regret it, someone drawled mockingly. The laughter that followed told me exactly who it was. Tony Revolori, a guy built like a linebacker with a smug grin plastered across his face. His posse of friends chuckled along with him, clearly enjoying the moment. The teacher's sharp glare cut through the laughter like a knife. Tony Revolori, that's enough, she said firmly. If you can't contribute to the class positively, I suggest you remain silent. Tony leaned back in his chair, smirking but saying nothing further. But I kept my composure and sat down. Peter leaned over and whispered, Don't let him get to you. He's all bark, no bite. Thanks, I muttered, appreciating the solidarity. The class continued with the teacher diving into the day's lessons, a mix of science and history. I tried to focus, but my mind kept drifting. Every now and then, I'd catch MJ scribbling something in her notebook while Gwen actually paid attention to the lecture. Ned doodled on his notes while Peter, ever the diligent student, took down everything the teacher said. By the time the bell rang for lunch break, I was more than ready to stretch my legs. Peter and Ned waited for me as we packed up our things. Come on, Peter said, leading the way. Let's show you where the cafeteria is. Just try to avoid sitting anywhere near Tony. Noted, I said with a small laugh, following them out into the bustling hallway. The cafeteria was just as chaotic as you'd expect from a high school. Students grouped together in cliques, the air filled with chatter, laughter, and the occasional shout. I followed Peter and Ned to a table near the corner, where we set our trays down. As we ate, I couldn't help but glance around the room. MJ was sitting with a group of artsy-looking students, her expression unreadable as she half-listened to their conversation. Gwen, on the other hand, was at a table with a few other students, casually chatting and laughing. Ned noticed me looking and grinned. Checking out the social landscape, huh? Let me guess, you're wondering if Peter's got a thing for MJ. Peter choked on his soda, coughing loudly as his face turned red. Ned. What? Ned said, throwing up his hands innocently. He was clearly thinking it. I wasn't, I began, but Peter cut me off. Can we not make this a thing? He said, his voice exasperated but tinged with embarrassment. Ned just laughed, and I couldn't help but chuckle along with him. After school, Peter and Ned invited Ben to their usual hangout, a local comic book shop tucked into a corner of Queens. Ben, being a huge anime fan, was thrilled to discover they had a small section dedicated to manga. He picked up a worn copy of Detective Conan, much to Ned's delight. That's classic, Ned said, flipping through the pages. But just wait till you see Peter's comic collection. It's insane. Peter shrugged modestly, but grinned. We can swing by my place sometime this week. After dinner, Ben sat in the living room with his family, recounting his first week at Midtown High. His parents listened intently as he spoke about Peter and Ned, describing their shared interests in comics, science, and movies. His little sister, always eager for gossip, asked, "Do you think you'll have more friends now?" Ben chuckled. Maybe. But I think Peter and Ned are all I need for now. Just as he finished speaking, the TV blared with the unmistakable voice of J. Jonah Jameson. The newsroom background displayed bold letters, "Spider-Menace strikes again." Spider-Man was seen swinging through the streets of Queens today, putting innocent lives at risk while supposedly stopping a common thief. Is he a hero, or just another vigilante playing dress-up? You decide. Jameson ranted, pointing dramatically at the camera. Ben leaned back, rolling his eyes. Does this guy ever shut up about Spider-Man? His father, flipping through the channels, grumbled, "You know he's got a point. The city doesn't need some kid in tights causing more chaos." Ben smirked but didn't argue. His mind wandered to Peter. Seeing Spider-Man earlier in the week made him wonder, how did Peter get his powers in this universe? In Ben's home universe, the origins of Spider-Man's powers had always been shrouded in mystery. The movies he'd seen never showed the moment Peter was bitten by the radioactive spider. Oscorp didn't exist in his world, so there was no definitive answer. But here, in this universe, Oscorp was real. A towering corporation with secrets buried in its labs and research facilities. He saw Spider-Man Homecoming only of Marvel when he was 14 and knows little bit about Sony Spider-Man. Could Oscorp be connected to Peter's powers here? Ben wondered. He glanced at the screen again, where Jameson was still ranting about Spider-Man. A part of him wanted to press Peter about his abilities, but he quickly brushed the thought aside. It's Peter's secret, as even I have my secret. Ben, his mother interrupted his thoughts. Are you listening? Huh? Oh yes, sorry. What did you say? I said it's late. Go get some rest. You've had a busy week, she said with a warm smile. All right, Ben said, standing up and stretching. He said goodnight to his family and headed to his room. It was a sunny afternoon, the kind where even school felt a little more bearable. The three of us, Peter, Ned, and I, were hanging out near the lockers, talking about our day. Peter was flipping through a notebook filled with scribbled diagrams and formulas, looking as focused as ever. That's when Dr. Connors walked up. With his kind demeanor and a slight limp, he greeted Peter with an approving nod. Peter, Dr. Connors began, holding the notebook Peter had submitted earlier for his science thesis. This is exceptional work. Your theories on tissue regeneration are fascinating. I'd like to discuss them further in the lab after school. Peter's face lit up, his surprise quickly turning into excitement. Really? Of course, Dr. Connors. I'll be there. As Dr. Connors walked away, Peter turned to us with an unmistakable grin. Guys, He actually liked my thesis. Can you believe it? Congrats, Peter, I said, clapping him on the shoulder. Just don't forget about us little people when you're a world-famous scientist. Ned smirked, adding, yeah, Parker. Don't go inventing the next big thing and leave us behind. Peter tilted his head, looking genuinely confused. Why would I forget you guys? Ned and I exchanged a glance, our grins widening. He doesn't get the sarcasm, we said in unison, bursting into laughter. Peter chuckled awkwardly. Okay. Laugh it up. But seriously, this could be a big deal for me. Dr. Connors is amazing, and if he's impressed, maybe I'm on the right track. We nodded in agreement. You are, Peter, I said. You've always been on the right track. Just don't let the science go to your head. When the final bell rang, signaling the end of the day, the three of us walked out together. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the school courtyard. Peter turned to face us at the gate. All right, guys, he said, holding out his hand for our signature handshake, a mix of fist bumps and a quick finger snap at the end. We'd come up with it weeks ago, and it had quickly become our thing. Good luck with the meeting, Ned said as he finished the handshake. Don't let Dr. Connors talk you into working overtime, I added, smirking. Peter grinned. Thanks, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. We watched as he jogged off toward the lab building, his backpack bouncing on his shoulder. Ned turned to me, grinning. Think he'll get to work on any cool experiments? Probably, I said, pulling my own bag onto my shoulder. Knowing Peter, he'll be knee-deep in science before dinner. The lab was dimly lit, with only the fluorescent overheads humming quietly, casting a sterile glow over the polished surfaces. Dr. Kurt Connors stood at a long table covered in an array of beakers, vials, and petri dishes, meticulously examining notes scribbled in his well-worn notebook. Peter Parker entered the room, still riding the excitement from his praise earlier. Ah, Peter, right on time, Dr. Connors said, glancing up with a welcoming smile. I trust you've brought your enthusiasm along? Always, Dr. Connors, Peter replied, shrugging off his backpack. So, what's the plan for today? Dr. Connors motioned toward a small tank on the table. Inside, a white rat scurried around, its movements slightly hindered by the absence of a front paw. Peter's curiosity piqued. This, Connors began, gesturing to the tank, is Subject Alpha, a specimen we've been using to test our limb regeneration serum. You're aware of the concept, yes? Peter nodded. Regenerative biology. It's how some reptiles, like lizards, can regrow lost tails or limbs. But applying that to mammals has always been tricky. Exactly, Connors said, impressed. And we've made significant progress in mimicking the process. The serum we've developed contains recombinant DNA from lizards. With it, we aim to stimulate rapid cellular regrowth in mammals. Peter's eyes widened. That's incredible. Have you tested it yet? Yes, but the results have been mixed, Connors admitted. He gestured to a monitor displaying video footage of previous experiments. In one clip, a rat with a missing paw was injected with the serum. Over the next few hours, the paw regrew, but the regenerated limb appeared disfigured, with uncontrolled growth. The rat, clearly distressed, displayed erratic behavior, banging its head against the enclosure. Peter leaned in, studying the footage. The cellular regrowth is happening too fast. It's like the cells don't know when to stop dividing. Precisely, Connors said. That's where I need your help, Peter. Your thesis on controlling cellular mutation was brilliant. With some adjustments, it might be the key to stabilizing the serum. Peter's heart raced. Working on something like this wasn't just exciting, it was groundbreaking. All right, let's do first. Peter and Connors spent the first day dissecting the composition of the serum. Using the lab's advanced microscopes, they observed the interaction between the serum and mammalian cells in a petri dish. See here, Connors pointed at the screen displaying magnified cell structures. The serum's DNA strands are integrating into the host cells, but the process is chaotic. The foreign DNA overpowers the host's natural mechanisms, leading to uncontrolled growth. Peter tapped his chin, deep in thought. What if we introduce a regulatory protein? Something to act like a traffic light, signaling when to stop cellular division. Connors nodded. That could work. Let's isolate a protein from human tissue samples and test it. After hours of trial and error, they managed to synthesize a protein that could theoretically slow down the regrowth process. The next day, they tested their modified serum on another rat. Peter carefully injected the serum into the rat's stump while Connors observed. Now we wait, Connors said, leaning back against the lab bench. Over the next few hours, they monitored the rat closely. The regrowth started slowly, a promising sign. Unlike the previous tests, the new limb formed at a more natural pace. It's working, Peter whispered, barely able to contain his excitement. But just as the paw fully regenerated, the rat began to display unusual behavior. It became hyper-aggressive, gnawing at the tank's walls and attempting to attack its reflection. Connors sighed, running a hand through his hair. The growth is stable, but the neurological effects remain. The foreign DNA might be interfering with the rat's brain chemistry. Peter frowned, scribbling notes. Maybe we need to focus on isolating the regeneration process from the nervous system. If we can ensure the serum only targets the damaged area, it might prevent these side effects. Peter and Connors adjusted the serum, adding a molecular inhibitor to block the serum from affecting the nervous system. As they worked, Connors shared more about his personal connection to the project. You know, Peter, Connors said, holding up his left arm, where his sleeve was neatly pinned. This research isn't just about science for me. It's personal. If we succeed, people like me could live normal lives again. Peter nodded, sensing the weight behind Connors' words. We'll get there, Dr. Connors. I know we will. On the fourth day, they tested the new serum on another rat. This time, the regrowth process was flawless. The paw grew back perfectly, and the rat displayed no aggressive tendencies. It moved around its tank calmly, as if nothing had happened. We did it, Connors said, his voice tinged with disbelief. Peter grinned. This is huge, Dr. Connors. Think about what this could mean for medicine. With their success, Connors began preparing to test the serum on larger mammals. Peter helped with the preparations, sterilizing equipment, and ensuring the lab was ready for the next phase. As they worked, Connors placed a hand on Peter's shoulder. You've been a tremendous help, Peter. I couldn't have done this without you. Peter smiled, feeling a deep sense of pride. I'm just glad I could contribute, Dr. Connors. This is what science is all about, making a difference. Next day lab was unusually quiet when Peter Parker walked in after school. The faint hum of equipment and the soft buzz of fluorescent lights were the only sounds. Peter's usual excitement about joining Dr. Kurt Connors for their experiments was quickly dampened when he saw the doctor slumped at his desk, his one hand cradling his forehead. Dr. Connors. Peter called out hesitantly, setting his backpack on a nearby chair. Connors looked up, his face lined with exhaustion and disappointment. His eyes were bloodshot, and his normally meticulous lab coat was wrinkled. Peter, Connors said with a heavy sigh. I'm glad you're here. Peter stepped closer, concern etched on his face. What's going on? You look, well, like you've had better days. Connors leaned back in his chair, staring blankly at the ceiling. I just got off the phone with Oscorp. Peter's heart sank. What did they say? They've decided to pull all funding from our project, Connors said bitterly. Apparently, our progress isn't profitable enough for them. They don't see the potential in what we're doing. Tomorrow they'll be here to take away everything. The equipment, the samples, even the research notes funded by their grants. Peter was stunned. What? But we've made so much progress. We're on the verge of something incredible. How can they just... Because they don't care about science, Peter, Connors interrupted, his voice tinged with frustration. They care about profit margins. About shareholders. Not about giving people like me, like others, a chance at a normal life. Peter clenched his fists, trying to hold back his anger. He could see how much this meant to Connors, how much time, energy, and hope the doctor had poured into this project. Dr. Connors, Peter said softly, pulling up a stool to sit beside him. I know this feels like the end, but it's not. You've done something amazing here. You've inspired me and probably countless others with your determination. And this is just a setback. Connors gave him a weak smile. You're young, Peter. Optimistic. It's admirable, but starting over, it's easier said than done. Then I'll help you, Peter said firmly. Whatever it takes. We can rebuild this project. Even if we have to start from scratch in a garage somewhere. The science is solid, Dr. Connors. It's not going to disappear just because Oscorp pulled the plug. Connors stared at Peter, his expression softening. You remind me of myself when I was your age. Full of hope, ready to take on the world. But life has a way of testing us, Peter interrupted. And we don't give up. That's what science is about, right? Trial and error. Failures and breakthroughs. This isn't a failure, Dr. Connors. It's just a delay. For the first time that day, Connors smiled, a real smile. You're right, Peter. You're absolutely right. Maybe I've been looking at this the wrong way. Peter grinned. That's the spirit. And hey, if we're rebuilding this thing from scratch, maybe we can do it even better this time. No corporate strings attached. Connors chuckled, some of the weight lifting from his shoulders. You have a knack for putting things into perspective, Peter. Thank you. Anytime, Doc, Peter said, standing up. Now, let's make the most of the time we have before they take everything tomorrow. We still have a few hours. Let's document everything we've done so far. We'll make sure they can't erase what we've accomplished. Connors nodded. When Peter left the lab, Connors took the serum after getting so near I can't pull out. I just need to adjust it a little and use it on myself. When they see it working, they will frown over me. Ben and Ned were sitting on a bench in the schoolyard, flipping through a stack of comics. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the lawn, and most of the students had already gone home. Ben held up a colorful cover featuring a caped hero battling a giant robot. Classic, he said, handing it to Ned. The story's predictable, but the art is fantastic. Ned nodded, barely looking up from his own comic. Agreed. But you know what's underrated? The sidekick stories. They never get enough attention. Ben chuckled. True, but let's be honest. Most sidekicks are just there to make the hero look cooler. As they laughed, Ben glanced toward the main building. When's Peter coming? He said he'd be out by now. Ned shrugged. He's probably still helping Dr. Connors. You know how dedicated he is to that lab work. Ben leaned back, closing the comic he was holding. Yeah, but he's been spending more time there than with us lately. What's so special about that research anyway? Before Ned could respond, the sound of hurried footsteps drew their attention. Peter emerged from the school building, his bag slung over one shoulder and a gloomy expression on his face. Finally, Ned called out. We were starting to think you forgot about us. Peter gave a weak smile as he approached. Hey guys. Ben frowned, noting the slump in Peter's shoulders. What's up, man? You look like you just lost your favorite comic. Peter sighed, dropping his bag on the bench. Dr. Connors' research has been called off. Oscorp just pulled their funding. Ned's eyes widened. Wait, what? Why? Peter sat down with a heavy sigh. They said it wasn't showing enough progress to justify the investment. But we were so close. We successfully tested the regenerative formula on a rat, and it worked. Well, sort of. Ben raised an eyebrow. Sort of. Peter nodded grimly. The rat regrew its lost limb, but then it started acting strange. It became aggressive, banging its head on the glass, biting at anything it could reach. Dr. Connors thinks the regeneration might have affected its brain, but we didn't get a chance to investigate further. Oscorp shut us down before we could figure it out. Ned shook his head. That's brutal. All that work, and they just pull the plug. Peter's expression darkened. Dr. Connors has been working on this for years. He genuinely believes it could change lives. Now he doesn't even have the resources to continue. Ben leaned forward, intrigued. This was the experiment with reptile DNA, right? Using lizard genes to help people regrow lost limbs. Exactly, Peter replied. It was groundbreaking work. If we just had a little more time. Ben tapped his chin thoughtfully. And Oscorp didn't care at all? Figures. Corporations only care about the bottom line, not the science. Peter gave a bitter laugh. Yeah, well, without their labs and equipment, it's over. Dr. Connors is looking for private investors, but that's not exactly easy. Ben glanced at Ned, then back at Peter. You're pretty passionate about this. Is it just because you're his assistant, or is there more to it? Peter hesitated, his gaze dropping to the ground. I've seen how much this project means to him. And I've learned a lot from him. It's hard watching him lose everything. Ben gave him a reassuring pat on the back. Hey, if anyone can bounce back, it's a guy like Dr. Connors. And who knows? Maybe there's a way to help him get back on track. Ned chimed in, holding up a comic. Maybe Spider-Man can swing by Oscorp and web up their board of directors. That'd send a message. Peter managed a small smile. Yeah, because Jameson would totally support that. Ben grinned. All right, enough depressing talk. How about we hit up my place and distract ourselves with some movies or games? Peter and Ned nodded, grateful for the change of pace. As the trio headed off, the day began like any other. The three of us, Peter, Ned, and I, sat in class, half listening to the teacher drone on about something we'd probably forget by the end of the week. Peter was doodling in his notebook, Ned was scrolling through his favorite conspiracy theory forum on his phone, and I was mentally counting down the minutes to lunch. That's when it happened. A deafening blast shook the entire building, rattling the windows and sending a jolt through everyone in the room. The teacher froze mid-sentence, her eyes wide with panic. A split second later, the school's emergency alarm blared, its shrill sound piercing through the air. The classroom fell into chaos. What was that? Ned whispered, his voice trembling. No idea, I replied, my heart racing. Before anyone could process what was happening, the door to our classroom burst open, and one of the teachers ran in, her face pale and frantic. Everyone, get out. Evacuate the school immediately, she shouted. There's a giant lizard monster in the building. For a moment, the room was silent. The words hung in the air, almost too absurd to believe. A giant lizard monster? Some of the students exchanged skeptical glances, assuming it was a drill or a bad joke. But then, the distant sounds of panicked screams and heavy footsteps reverberated through the hallway. The reality of the situation hit us like a freight train. Move. Now! The teacher yelled, her voice cracking with desperation. The classroom erupted into chaos as students bolted for the door, pushing and shoving in their haste to escape. The school was in pandemonium. Students screamed as they scrambled to escape, teachers shouted for calm, and the blaring alarm only amplified the chaos. Peter Parker stood frozen in shock when the words "giant lizard monster" left the teacher's lips. His heart raced as he whispered to himself, "What have you done, Doctor?" Ben, standing nearby, caught Peter's murmured words and furrowed his brow. "What kind of luck is this?" he muttered under his breath, though Peter was already moving. As students rushed out of the classroom, Peter slipped away unnoticed, darting into the nearest bathroom. Once inside, he locked the door and ripped open his backpack, revealing his Spider-Man suit. Quickly, he stripped off his school clothes and pulled the suit on, his movements fueled by adrenaline. Peter stuck his bag to the wall with a quick web shot, adjusted his mask, and whispered to himself, "All right, Spidey. Let's figure out what's going on." He pushed the bathroom window open and swung out, heading toward the source of the commotion. Amidst the chaos and panic of the evacuation, I slipped away unnoticed. While the other students ran toward safety, I found myself drawn toward the source of the commotion. My heart was pounding, but curiosity outweighed any fear. If this really was the work of a giant lizard monster, there was no way I was going to miss seeing it with my own eyes. I crouched behind a row of lockers, peeking out just in time to catch Spider-Man himself. Yes, the real Spider-Man, swinging into action. My eyes widened in disbelief as he landed gracefully in front of the hulking creature and began exchanging blows. So that's where Peter went, I thought to myself. But before I could dwell on it, a familiar voice cut through the chaos. Peter. Ben. It was Ned, standing a few hallways over, yelling at the top of his lungs. Behind him were Gwen Stacy and MJ, their expressions a mix of worry and frustration. Gwen, clearly taking charge, grabbed Ned by the arm and hissed, "Are you insane? You can't just run off in the middle of this." MJ, who had arrived moments later, crossed her arms and glared at Ned. "What are you doing? And why are you yelling Peter and Ben's names?" Ned, catching his breath, stammered, "They're not with the group. I saw them go in the opposite direction before all this started." Gwen's eyes narrowed. "So you think they ran toward the danger instead of away from it?" "I don't think," Ned replied, his voice trembling. "I know. Peter and Ben wouldn't just disappear unless they were up to something." MJ groaned. "Great. So now we have to find them? You better not be wrong about this, Leeds. We don't have time to argue." Gwen snapped. "If they really went the other way, they could be in serious danger. Let's go." The three of them took off in the opposite direction of the evacuating crowd, weaving through the abandoned hallways. Gwen led the way, her determination unshaken. It was clear she had some experience staying calm under pressure, probably thanks to her dad, Captain Stacy. MJ, on the other hand, muttered under her breath as they ran. "I can't believe I'm doing this." Of course, Peter Parker has to get himself into trouble on the one day there's a giant lizard in the school. Ned, for his part, was trying to keep up while glancing nervously over his shoulder. "You guys realize this is, like, super dangerous, right? Maybe we should—" "We're already in it, Ned." Gwen interrupted, her voice sharp. "Focus." As they turned a corner, the sound of fighting grew louder. The walls shook with every crash, and the air was filled with guttural roars and the sound of something heavy smashing into lockers. "Is that Spider-Man?" MJ asked, her eyes widening. "Sounds like it," Ned replied, a hint of awe in his voice. "But where's Peter? And Ben?" Gwen didn't answer. She quickened her pace, leading them closer to the source of the commotion. Spider-Man, the hallway near the science labs, was a war zone. Lockers were ripped from the walls, tables and chairs shattered, and the floor tiles cracked as if something enormous had stomped through. The air smelled of chemicals and ozone, a sickening combination that made Peter's nose crinkle beneath his mask. Then he saw it. The creature was massive, easily 8 feet tall, with thick, scaled green skin glistening under the flickering fluorescent lights. Its claws were sharp enough to gouge the floor with every step, and its yellow eyes gleamed with a savage intelligence. This wasn't just a monster, it was Dr. Kurt Connors, or at least what was left of him. "Dr. Connors." Spider-Man called out, landing gracefully on the wall beside the ruined lab entrance. "You've, made some drastic changes to your skincare routine." The creature turned its head toward him, lips curling back to reveal razor-sharp teeth. Its voice was guttural and distorted, but unmistakably human. "Spider-Man, you don't understand. This is evolution. Perfection." Peter narrowed his eyes. "Yeah, I've seen Jurassic Park. This doesn't end well." The lizard growled, low and menacing. "You mock what you cannot comprehend. I am superior now. Stronger, faster, unstoppable." Before Peter could respond, the lizard lunged with terrifying speed. Peter barely had time to leap off the wall, flipping midair to avoid the swipe of claws that shredded the brick where he'd been perched. "Whoa. Someone's been skipping leg day." "Oh wait, no you haven't." Peter quipped as he fired a web at the creature's face. The lizard roared in frustration, clawing at the sticky webbing covering its eyes. Taking advantage of the moment, Peter shot more webbing at its legs, trying to immobilize it. "Let's keep those big, scaly feet on the ground, shall we?" Peter said, landing on a nearby table. The victory was short-lived. With a deafening roar, the lizard flexed its legs and ripped through the webbing like it was tissue paper. Peter's eyes widened as the creature charged again, swiping at him with claws that nearly took his head off. Okay, note to self, stronger web formula, Peter muttered, flipping backward to avoid the attack. The lizard smashed through a row of lockers, sending metal shards flying. Spider-Man ducked and weaved, his reflexes keeping him just out of harm's way. He fired web after web, trying to slow the creature down, but nothing seemed to stick for long. You don't have to do this, Doc. Peter shouted, dodging another powerful strike. We can fix this. You don't need to fix this, the lizard bellowed, his voice a mixture of rage and mockery. I don't need fixing, Spider-Man. I am the future. And soon, everyone will see it. They will become it. Peter's stomach dropped. Oh great. You're not just a giant lizard. You're a giant lizard with a superiority complex. The lizard responded by ripping a lab bench out of the ground and hurling it at Peter. He barely managed to flip out of the way as the bench smashed into the wall behind him, sending chunks of plaster raining down. You can't stop me, the lizard roared, charging again. This time, Peter met the charge head-on, swinging down from the ceiling and delivering a powerful kick to the creature's chest. The impact sent the lizard staggering back, but it quickly recovered, swiping at Peter with both claws. Peter ducked, spun, and landed a punch to the creature's jaw. Come on, Doc. Peter said, dodging another attack. I'm just trying to help you, OW. The lizard's tail whipped around, catching Peter off guard and sending him flying into a row of lockers. The impact knocked the wind out of him, and he groaned as he struggled to his feet. You're weak, Spider-Man, the lizard sneered, towering over him. You cling to your humanity like it's a gift. But it's a curse. A limitation. Peter fired a web at the ceiling and swung himself out of the creature's reach just as it lunged. Yeah, well, I like my humanity, thanks. It lets me enjoy pizza movies, and not turning into a giant lizard. You joke because you're afraid, the lizard growled, his claws scraping against the floor. But soon, you'll understand. Soon, everyone will. This city will evolve, whether it wants to or not. Peter's heart pounded. Evolve? What do you mean? The lizard grinned, a terrifying expression. The serum is ready. I've perfected it. It's only a matter of time before I share it with the world. Peter felt a chill run down his spine. Oh no. That's not happening, document. Not on my watch. The lizard roared and charged again, faster than ever. Peter leapt onto the ceiling, firing webs at the creature's feet as it ran. The web slowed it down just enough for Peter to swing down and deliver a powerful double kick to its back. The lizard stumbled, but it retaliated with a swipe that nicked Peter's shoulder, tearing his suit. Peter winced but didn't let up, using his agility to stay one step ahead. Come on, Doc. Let's call it a day before someone gets hurt, like me. The lizard didn't respond, instead slamming its tail into the ground. The shockwave sent Peter tumbling, but he quickly recovered, firing a web at the creature's face to blind it. Time for a nap, big guy, Peter muttered, flipping over the lizard and landing a series of rapid punches to its side. The lizard roared in frustration, shaking off the webbing and swiping wildly. Peter dodged each attack, his mind racing for a way to subdue the creature. Ben. Peter. The panicked cries of Gwen, Ned, and MJ echoed through the school halls, loud enough to pierce the tension in the air. Both Spider-Man and the lizard froze momentarily, their heads snapping toward the source of the sound. The lizard's yellow eyes glinted with malicious intent as he turned toward the students' voices. Let's see how you save them, Spider-Man, he growled, charging down the corridor toward the unsuspecting trio. From my hiding spot behind a row of lockers, I clenched my fists, heart pounding. This can't be happening. I glanced down at the Omnitrix on my wrist, its faceplate glowing faintly green. My mind raced, weighing my options, but there wasn't time for second-guessing. With a determined scowl, I twisted the dial, flipping through silhouettes until I landed on the one I needed. Here goes nothing, I muttered, slamming the Omnitrix. A brilliant green flash lit up the hallway, and my body morphed. Muscles rippled under thick, orange fur. My vision shifted to infrared, and my hearing sharpened, picking up every scrape of the lizard's claws against the tile. My form grew larger and more imposing, my arms transforming into powerful limbs ending in razor-sharp claws. My tail swished behind me for balance, and my nostrils flared, taking in the scent of the enemy. I had become Wildmutt, the primal beast from the Omnitrix. The lizard was mere feet away from Gwen, Ned, and MJ when I leapt into action, landing between them with a ground-shaking thud. Letting out a guttural roar, I bared my fangs and crouched low, ready to pounce. The lizard skidded to a halt, tilting his head as he examined me. A giant dog? No, something more. Fascinating, he mused, his voice laced with sinister curiosity. But even you can't stop me. Before he could react, I lunged forward, claws slashing through the air. The lizard barely dodged, my attack slicing into the wall instead, leaving deep gouges. He hissed, his tail whipping around to strike me, but I ducked low, using my heightened senses to predict his movements. Spider-Man swung into the fray, landing a kick to the lizard's back. "Wow, lassie. You've got some serious moves," he quipped as he landed beside me. "But let's keep him away from my friends, yeah?" I let out a low growl in agreement, my body tense and ready for the next attack. The lizard roared, charging at me with terrifying speed. I met him head-on, our bodies colliding with enough force to crack the tiles beneath us. His claws raked across my fur, but my thick hide absorbed most of the damage. Snarling, I clamped my jaws around his arm, shaking him violently before tossing him aside. Spider-Man leapt onto the lizard's back, wrapping him in webbing. "Let's see how you like being tied up," he said, firing another stream of webbing to secure the lizard's legs. But the lizard was stronger than we anticipated. With a guttural roar, he tore through the webbing and grabbed Spider-Man, hurling him across the hallway. Spidey managed to land on the wall, his reflexes saving him from a hard crash. "Okay, new plan," Spider-Man muttered, swinging back into the fight. I circled the lizard, my nostrils flaring as I tracked his every move. When he lunged at Spider-Man, I seized the opportunity, jumping onto his back and digging my claws into his scales. He roared in pain, thrashing wildly, but I held firm, biting down on his shoulder. "You're persistent, I'll give you that," the lizard snarled, slamming me into the wall to shake me off. Spider-Man swung in from above, landing a series of quick punches to the lizard's face. "Hey, Scales. You talk too much," he taunted, distracting the monster long enough for me to recover. I charged at the lizard again, this time aiming for his legs. With a powerful swipe of my claws, I knocked him off balance, sending him crashing to the floor. Spider-Man followed up with a web to his face, temporarily blinding him. "Nice teamwork, big guy," Spider-Man called out, giving me a thumbs up. I let out a bark of approval, my tail swishing as I crouched low, ready for the next move. The lizard tore the webbing from his face, his eyes glowing with rage. "You think you can stop me? I am superior to all of you," he bellowed, his voice echoing through the halls. He lashed out with his tail, catching Spider-Man in the chest and sending him flying into a row of lockers. Before I could react, the lizard turned his attention to me, slashing at my side with his claws. I snarled in pain but retaliated, raking my own claws across his torso. We grappled, a blur of orange fur and green scales, each trying to overpower the other. My heightened senses allowed me to anticipate his moves, but his sheer strength made him a formidable opponent. Spider-Man swung back into the fray, firing webbing at the lizard's feet to slow him down. "Come on, Scales. Let's see how fast you are now," he taunted. The lizard hissed, tearing through the webbing, but the distraction gave me the opening I needed. Leaping onto his back, I clamped my jaws around his tail, using all my strength to swing him around. With a growl, I spun faster and faster, the lizard's massive body becoming a blur. Finally, I released him, sending him crashing through a set of double doors. He lay there dazed, his tail still twitching in my mouth. Grimacing, I spat it out, the severed appendage landing on the ground with a sickening thud. The lizard staggered to his feet, his tail already beginning to regenerate. You'll regret this," he snarled, retreating toward the nearest vent. Before I could chase after him, the distant sound of police sirens filled the air. I darted into the bathroom, my breath ragged as I leaned against the cold tiles. The Omnitrix on my wrist began beeping, its once vibrant green now flashing an alarming red. Great timing, I muttered, watching as the transformation energy drained away. In a flash of green light, I was back to being plain old Ben Tennyson. My fur was gone, replaced with my usual clothes. I splashed cold water on my face, trying to steady my nerves. That was way too close. How am I supposed to explain this if anyone saw me? Shaking off the thought, I bolted out of the bathroom, heading down another hallway to avoid the chaos. As I rounded a corner, I nearly collided with Ned, MJ, and Gwen. "What are you guys doing here?" I asked, trying to mask my exhaustion with forced nonchalance. Ned looked relieved to see me. "We were looking for you and Peter. Where did you go?" I scratched the back of my neck, fumbling for an answer. I ran off in the other direction when everyone started panicking. By the time I got outside, I realized I didn't see you guys, so I came back in to find you. MJ narrowed her eyes, but didn't press further. "Did you see Peter anywhere?" "No," I lied smoothly. "That's actually why I was running around, trying to find him too." Just as the words left my mouth, Peter appeared behind us, adjusting his bag and looking a bit frazzled. "Peter, where were you?" Gwen asked, her tone a mix of relief and frustration. Peter blinked, caught off guard by the sudden interrogation. I got stuck in the science lab when everything started going crazy. You know how Dr. Connors always keeps the door jammed? I couldn't get it open for a while. Then I heard the commotion and figured I should find you guys." MJ raised an eyebrow. Convenient timing. Peter gave her an awkward smile, clearly trying to deflect. "Yeah, well, I'm here now, so crisis averted, right?" Before anyone could dig further into his story, a booming voice echoed through the hallway. "Children, get back outside. It's not safe in here." We turned to see none other than Captain George Stacy, Gwen's father, standing with a group of police officers. His sharp eyes scanned the group, lingering on Gwen for a moment. "Gwen," he said firmly, his tone leaving no room for argument. She nodded quickly. "We're going, Dad." Without another word, we all turned and ran toward the school's main exit. As we made our way toward the crowd of students and teachers gathered in the parking lot, I glanced at Peter. He looked calm on the surface, but I knew him well enough to see the tension in his jaw. As we regrouped outside, catching our breaths from the chaos, Ned suddenly burst out, "Guys, you won't believe what I saw inside." All eyes immediately turned to him, MJ, Gwen, Peter, and me, each of us eager but nervous to hear his account. "What did you see?" Ben asked. "Spider-Man," Ned exclaimed, his eyes wide with excitement. He was fighting this giant lizard monster. And get this, a huge orange dog jumped into the fight to help him. "A dog?" Peter chimed in, her voice avoiding suspicion. "Like, an actual dog? Are you sure it wasn't some other creature?" Gwen moved in and said no, it was a dog. Well, kinda. It didn't have eyes, but it was massive. It jumped right in and started fighting alongside Spider-Man like they were a team or something. I tried to mask my reaction, keeping my expression neutral as the group turned to me for input. MJ crossed her arms, skeptical. "A dog? Fighting a giant lizard? That doesn't make any sense." "Yeah," Peter added, scratching his head as if confused. "How could a dog possibly fight a creature like that? Maybe you just imagined it, Ned." "I'm serious," Ned insisted, looking frustrated at their disbelief. "It wasn't just any dog, it was like some kind of super dog. It was fast, strong, and it could even roar. I think Spider-Man trained it to help him or something." I bit the inside of my cheek, trying to hold back my irritation. Trained dog? Seriously? Wow, really? A dog? I said aloud, injecting just enough sarcasm into my voice to cover up any genuine emotion. "Yeah." Ned continued, completely missing my tone. "It was crazy. It was like something out of a comic book." Peter chuckled nervously. "Ned, come on. Even if Spider-Man did have some kind of pet, there's no way a dog could take on a giant lizard monster. That's just Absurd. I forced a laugh, but inwardly felt offended. I'm no one's dog. Gwen, however, seemed intrigued. I mean, it does sound strange, but given all the weird stuff happening lately, who knows? Maybe it wasn't a dog. Maybe it was some kind of mutant creature. Mutant or not, it was incredible, Ned concluded. And I swear, it was fighting like it was born for it. Spider-Man and that dog or whatever it was made a great team. As we stood there, still processing the chaos, a group of police officers approached us. Leading them was none other than Captain George Stacy. His sharp gaze swept over the crowd of students before landing on Gwen. "Gwen," he said, his voice firm but laced with concern. "Are you all right?" "Yes, Dad," she replied, stepping forward. "We're fine." He looked at the rest of us, his expression softening slightly. "What about the rest of you? Did you see anything unusual or suspicious inside the building before the evacuation?" Peter stepped forward, his usual awkward demeanor taking over. No, sir. We were in class when we heard the explosion. Everyone just started running, and we did the same." I nodded quickly to back him up. Yeah, it was chaos. We didn't really get a good look at what was happening. Ned, however, looked like he was about to blurt out his story about Spider-Man and the giant dog, but MJ elbowed him discreetly before he could say anything. "We were all just trying to get out safely," she added, shooting Ned a warning glance. Captain Stacy studied us for a moment, then sighed. "All right. If you remember anything, or if you see anything unusual, you let me know immediately." We all nodded in agreement, mumbling a chorus of "Yes, sir." After a few more questions, the officers began directing students to the buses. "Get home safe," Captain Stacy said, his tone leaving no room for argument. As we walked toward the waiting buses, MJ leaned in closer to Peter and whispered, "That was intense. Are you sure you're okay? You seemed distracted." Peter waved her off, a sheepish smile on his face. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just thinking about everything that happened." I glanced at him, catching the subtle tension in his shoulders. He's probably worried about the fight with the lizard. We climbed onto the bus. As the vehicle pulled away from the school, none of us said much. Ned seemed deep in thought, probably still replaying his encounter with Spider-Man and the dog. Gwen and MJ exchanged quiet whispers, while Peter stared out the window, lost in his own world. When the bus finally reached our stop, we parted ways with quick goodbyes. As I walked home, I replayed the events in my mind. What a day. When I reached home, my mom greeted me with her usual warmth. "How was school, Ben?" "It was eventful," I replied, forcing a smile. She frowned. "Eventful? What happened?" "Nothing major. Just, a drill. You know, the usual stuff." She didn't look entirely convinced, but she let it go. As the police began their investigation, Captain George Stacy took charge, directing his officers to comb through the wreckage of the school lab for any clues. Amid the chaos, one of the officers stumbled upon a partially damaged camera lying beneath the overturned equipment. "Sir, I found something," the officer called out, handing the camera to George Stacy. Stacy examined the device, his experienced eyes narrowing. "Get this to the tech team. Let's see if we can recover any footage from it." Within an hour, the tech team managed to retrieve the video. The footage displayed a clear and chilling sequence. Dr. Kurt Connors, seated at a lab station, meticulously preparing the serum. He seemed determined, almost desperate, as he injected the serum into his own arm. At first, nothing happened. Then, Connors began to convulse, his body writhing in agony. His lab coat tore as his muscles expanded, his skin darkening into scales. A guttural roar escaped his mouth as he completed his horrifying transformation into the lizard. The room fell silent as the officers finished watching the footage. George Stacy stood at the center, his jaw clenched. "So the reports were true," he murmured, his voice low. "This isn't just some random attack. It's Connors." One of his officers hesitated before speaking. "What should we do, Captain?" Stacy straightened, his resolve hardening. "Put out an APB. Patrol all major areas surrounding the school and nearby sewers. This thing's dangerous, and we can't afford to let it go unchecked. If anyone spots him, they're not to engage. Call for backup immediately." The officers nodded, their expressions grim as they dispersed to carry out the orders. Meanwhile, Stacy turned to one of the techs. "Make sure the higher-ups at Oscorp are informed about this. I want to know why Connors felt he had to go this far and why he was experimenting with something so dangerous. If they were involved in any way, I'll need answers." The tech nodded, quickly making a call. As the patrols were deployed, Stacy stared at the darkening horizon. He knew that dealing with the lizard wasn't going to be easy. Connors wasn't just any threat. He was a man with the mind of a scientist and the power of a beast. This city's seen its fair share of chaos. But this? This is something new, he thought, gripping his radio. After the cops declared it safe to resume school following their investigation, Peter, Ned, and I were sitting on the bus. The bus screeched to an abrupt halt, jerking us forward in our seats. My hands instinctively gripped the seat in front of me, and I exchanged a startled look with Peter and Ned. "What the hell is going on?" Ned muttered, his voice laced with confusion. Before anyone could respond, the sound of loud yelling erupted from outside, followed by the sight of people running in sheer panic. The bus driver stepped out, slamming the door behind him. "Everybody out. Move. We're heading to the back as fast as we can," he shouted. His voice trembled, betraying his fear. We followed the rest of the students as they scrambled off the bus, but the moment my feet hit the ground, I froze. The scene before me was something out of a nightmare. Flames engulfed buildings, sending thick black smoke billowing into the sky. Green mist curled ominously around the wreckage, casting an eerie glow over the chaos. People were running in all directions, some screaming, others stumbling, bleeding, or clutching at loved ones. Then I saw it. Among the green smoke and fire, some people were writhing on the ground, their bodies contorting unnaturally. Their skin bubbled and cracked, sprouting green scales, their limbs elongating into grotesque claws. The transformation was horrifying to watch, and it hit me like a punch to the gut. "What the hell?" I whispered, my breath hitching. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as I took in the devastation. The cries of pain and terror mixed with the distant sounds of sirens. As I stumbled forward, my eyes landed on a small figure huddled in the corner of the street, a little girl, no older than 6, crying and clutching her knees. Her face was streaked with tears and dirt, her body trembling as she sat amidst the chaos. I didn't think twice before running toward her. "Hey, sweetie," I said, crouching down in front of her. My voice shook, but I tried to keep it steady for her sake. "Don't cry. Are you hurt? Can you tell me where your parents are?" She looked up at me with wide, tear-filled eyes and shakily pointed toward a store that was engulfed in flames. My heart sank as I followed her gaze. The building was on the verge of collapse, and the fire was spreading rapidly. My instinct screamed to get her away from here. "It's going to be okay," I said, forcing a reassuring smile. "Do you see those medical vans over there?" I pointed toward a cluster of ambulances where doctors were frantically tending to the injured. "Go there and stay with them. I promise I'll find your parents." The girl hesitated for a moment, then nodded. She got to her feet and started running toward the safety of the medics. I exhaled a shaky breath and turned my attention back to the store. That's when I saw Peter, Spider-Man. He was in the thick of it, leaping and dodging as 6 lizard men surrounded him. Their claws slashed through the air, narrowly missing him as he countered with web shots that momentarily blinded and disoriented them. His movements were quick, calculated, but even I could tell he was outnumbered. Gunfire erupted nearby, and I turned to see police officers trying to hold their ground. Their bullets barely phased the lizard men, who roared and charged forward, forcing the cops to retreat. The scene was overwhelming, but I couldn't look away. The devastation, the fear, the sheer chaos, it was a nightmare brought to life. And in the middle of it all, I saw lives were at stake. If I didn't step in, more people would suffer. One of the lizard men had tackled Spider-Man, pinning him to the ground. He struggled to break free, webbing the creature's face to blind it, but another lizard man was already closing in. I felt my stomach drop. Spider-Man was in trouble, and the lizard men were relentless. Then I saw the little girl I had helped earlier reach the medics. She turned back for a moment, her eyes searching for me, and something inside me snapped. I couldn't just stand here. This is it, I muttered to myself. No more standing on the sidelines. As the chaos unfolded, Ben's heart raced. The sight of people screaming, buildings ablaze, and civilians turning into lizard-like creatures filled him with a deep sense of dread. This is what happens if I stay on the sidelines, he thought bitterly. This is what happens when someone doesn't step in. Clenching his fists, Ben ducked into a nearby alley, out of sight from the crowd. The Omnitrix blinked steadily on his wrist. He flipped the dial, cycling through alien options, each holographic image flashing across the faceplate. He needed someone strong, durable, and capable of containing these mutated creatures. Then the image of Diamond Head appeared, a tall crystalline alien made entirely of sharp, glimmering green diamond. Ben nodded and slammed his hand onto the Omnitrix, initiating the transformation. Bright green light engulfed the alley, illuminating the smoke-filled air. Ben felt his body change. His skin hardened into facets of pure diamond. His hands became sharp, angular, and capable of immense strength. Standing tall as Diamond Head, Ben flexed his arms, the sunlight glinting off his crystal frame. Let's do this, he thought, his voice deeper and more resonant. He sprinted out of the alley and scaled a nearby building with ease. His diamond fingers digging into the brick and mortar like a knife through butter. Reaching the rooftop, he scanned the streets below. The devastation was worse than he thought. Cars overturned, people trapped in fiery wreckage, and 6 mutated lizard men wreaking havoc in the heart of the city. Nearby, Spider-Man was already locked in combat with 3 of the creatures, his webbing doing little to restrain their raw strength. Ben leaped from the rooftop, landing in the middle of the street with a thunderous crash. His crystalline feet cracked the asphalt, sending a shockwave rippling outward. The lizard men turned their reptilian eyes toward him, hissing in confusion and rage. The police, startled by the sudden arrival of another monster, immediately opened fire. Bullets ricocheted harmlessly off Ben's diamond skin, pinging into nearby walls and cars. He raised a crystalline hand in frustration, glaring at the officers. "I'm on your side, so maybe stop shooting at me," he bellowed, his deep voice echoing across the street. Ignoring the cops for now, Ben turned his attention to the lizard men. He slammed both hands into the ground, summoning a wave of jagged green crystals that erupted from the earth and encased 3 of the creatures in a sturdy crystal cage. The lizard men thrashed against the translucent walls, but the diamond structure held firm. Ben smirked. "Let's see you break out of that." Before he could celebrate, one of the remaining lizard men lunged at him, claws outstretched. Ben ducked under the attack, spinning to deliver a powerful punch to the creature's side. His diamond fist collided with the lizardman's ribs, sending it skidding across the pavement and into a parked car. The force of the impact dented the vehicle, and the lizard man let out a guttural growl before scrambling back to its feet. Spider-Man swung down beside Ben, firing webs at another lizard man trying to climb a lamppost. "Hey, shiny guy," Spider-Man quipped, landing gracefully. "You a new hero, or just another alien here for vacation?" Ben chuckled, not missing a beat as he blocked a claw swipe with his diamond forearm. "Let's call it an internship," he said, forming a sharp crystal blade from his arm and slicing at the lizard man, forcing it to retreat. "What's the plan, Spidey?" "Contain and rescue," Spider-Man said, dodging another lizardman's tail. "You handle the big guys. I'll keep the little guys safe." "Deal," Ben said, turning to the lizard men. One of them tried to leap at him, but Ben stomped the ground, sending a wave of crystal spikes surging forward. The lizard man was caught mid-air, its body frozen in a cage of shimmering green diamond. Meanwhile, Spider-Man swung toward a group of trapped civilians, using his webs to create an escape path through the wreckage. As Spider-Man focused on rescuing civilians, Ben turned his attention to the remaining lizard men. One of them charged at him with surprising speed, claws slashing wildly. Ben met the attack head-on, forming a massive diamond shield to block the strikes. With a swift counter, he extended his arm into a sharp spear and jabbed at the creature, forcing it to retreat. Another lizard man tried to flank him, leaping onto his back. Ben grunted, reaching behind him to grab the creature and hurl it into a nearby building. The wall crumbled slightly under the impact, but the lizard man wasn't done yet. It snarled and charged again. Ben sighed, summoning another wave of crystals to encase it in a makeshift prison. "Stay put, will you?" he muttered. With most of the lizard men neutralized, Ben slammed the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, initiating another transformation. In a flash of green light, his crystalline body morphed into the sleek aerodynamic form of XLR8. His new body, covered in black and blue armor-like skin, was built for speed, with sharp claws and a visor-like helmet. Ben darted through the chaos at lightning speed, weaving through the wreckage and flames. He spotted a family trapped in a burning store. Without hesitation, he dashed inside, the heat barely registering against his alien form. "Everyone grab on!" he shouted, his voice distorted slightly by the Omnitrix. The family clung to him, and in a blur, he whisked them out to safety, depositing them near the medical vans. Spider-Man swung down beside him, carrying a child in his arms. "Nice moves. Where's the shiny guy?" he said, setting the child down. Ben, vanishing in a streak of blue. Within seconds, he had evacuated another group of civilians, depositing them safely away from the danger zone. As the last of the civilians were rescued, Ben and Spider-Man regrouped. The remaining lizard men, seeing their comrades defeated and their prey evacuated, hissed angrily before retreating into the sewers. Ben considered chasing them but stopped when he heard the wail of approaching sirens. "The cops are here," Spider-Man said, nodding toward the flashing lights in the distance. "Time to vanish." "Agreed," Ben said. He dashed into an alley, reverting to his human form just as Spider-Man swung out of sight. Taking a deep breath, Ben adjusted his jacket and stepped back onto the street, blending into the crowd as if nothing had happened. As soon as Ben opened the door, his mother rushed toward him, wrapping him in a tight hug. "Are you all right? Why didn't you pick up your phone? Do you know how worried I was?" Ben returned the hug, patting her back reassuringly. "I'm okay, Mom. My phone was on silent. I didn't hear it." She pulled back slightly, her eyes scanning him for any injuries. Satisfied that he was unharmed, she sighed deeply and guided him to the living room. His sister had the TV on, and the news was blaring. The reporter on screen stood amidst the chaos, the camera panning over scenes of destruction. Damaged buildings, overturned cars, and smoke rising into the sky. Earlier today, the city was thrown into turmoil when monstrous lizard-like creatures appeared, wreaking havoc. Spider-Man and another unidentified creature intervened, battling the lizards in an attempt to mitigate the damage. However, the situation has left a tragic mark. 20 people have been confirmed dead, 51 injured, and 6 others were transformed into lizard-like monsters themselves. Ben clenched his fists as the words sank in. His jaw tightened, and he looked down, trying to process the devastation. His mother was on the phone, her voice a mix of concern and relief. When she ended the call, she turned to Ben. "That was your father. He's out there helping to contain the fire. He said he'll be late." Ben nodded silently, still staring at the TV. The reporter continued, her tone somber. In related news, another incident occurred simultaneously at Oscorp. Reports suggest a break-in where several pieces of equipment were stolen, including the highly sensitive Gonali device. This device, designed for large-scale atmospheric dispersal of medicine, could potentially be weaponized. The question remains, why would the lizard creatures target Oscorp, and what are their intentions? Ben's fists tightened further as he listened, his mind racing. This isn't over. If they have that device, it's only going to get worse. He stood abruptly, pulling his thoughts together. "I'm heading over to Peter's house," he said, breaking the silence. His mother looked at him, concerned. "Now? It's already late. Are you sure you're okay?" "Yeah, I just need some air, and to talk to Peter," Ben replied, trying to sound casual. He grabbed his jacket and moved toward the door. His mother watched him, her expression a mix of worry and trust. "Be careful, Ben." "I will," he promised, closing the door behind him. As he walked into the night, his mind was focused. He knew he couldn't stand by any longer. It was time to act. Peter was hunched over a cluttered desk in Dr. Connor's lab, the faint glow of a makeshift serum illuminating his determined face. His hands worked swiftly but carefully, mixing chemicals and adjusting formulas. This has to work, he thought. I need to save Dr. Connors before it's too late. Suddenly, a familiar voice broke the silence. I knew I'd find you here. Peter froze, the vial in his hand trembling slightly. He turned slowly, and his heart skipped a beat. Standing at the doorway, arms crossed and an expression of calm curiosity on his face, was Ben. Peter gulped, setting the vial down. What are you doing here? Ben stepped into the room, his eyes scanning the disheveled lab. Helping you speed up the process so our Spider-Man can save the day. Peter's eyes widened. You know. Ben nodded, a small smirk playing on his lips. I've known for a while. I saw you run into the bathroom during the lizard incident and change into Spider-Man. Plus, your sudden disappearances whenever Spider-Man shows up? Not exactly subtle. Peter stared at him, a mixture of shock and panic on his face. Ben, you can't tell anyone. Ben raised a hand to reassure him. Relax, I won't. Your secret's safe with me. He stepped closer and without warning, pulled up the sleeve of his jacket, revealing a strange watch on his wrist. Peter blinked in confusion. What's that? Ben tapped the side of the device, and a flickering holographic projection disappeared, displaying the unmistakable green and black emblem of the Omnitrix. Peter's jaw dropped. You're... Peter trailed off, his mind racing. Ben nodded. Yep. I'm the guy who helped you fight in school as Wildmutt, and the same guy who turned into Diamond Head and XLR8. Those are their names, by the way. Peter's shock only deepened. That was you. Ben grinned. We've all got secrets, Parker. But we're both on the same side here. We've got powers, and it's our responsibility to use them. Peter shook his head, still trying to process everything. This is insane. An watch that turns you in alien? Shape-shifting? And you just didn't think to tell me. I could say the same about you being Spider-Man, Ben shot back with a teasing grin. But hey, we're here now. And we've got a bigger problem to deal with. Peter glanced back at the serum he was working on, then at Ben. His initial apprehension began to melt away. All right, fine. You've got powers, I've got powers. But this isn't about us, it's about Dr. Connors. If we don't act fast, things are going to get worse. Ben nodded. That's why I'm here. Let's stop Dr. Connors. Together. Peter nodded, adjusting the serum vial. All right, let's finish this and get it to Dr. Connors. We need to stop him before things get even worse. Ben raised a hand, his expression thoughtful. Actually, I think I might have a way to fix this without the serum. Peter stopped, narrowing his eyes. What do you mean? Ben tapped the Omnitrix on his wrist. This watch, it has a function to repair damaged DNA and restore it to its original state. Peter's jaw dropped. You're telling me that thing can fix Dr. Connors? Ben shrugged. In theory, yeah. But there's a catch. To use it, I need to scan them first. And let's be real, are those lizard monsters going to stand still long enough for me to do that? Peter rubbed his temples, pacing back and forth. Wait, hold on. You're walking around with a piece of tech that can repair DNA, and you didn't use it earlier? Why didn't you tell me this before? Wow, cool down, Parker, Ben said, holding up his hands. First of all, I didn't know if it would work on this. Second, we've both been a little preoccupied fighting giant lizard monsters, remember? Peter crossed his arms, clearly still processing. Okay, fine. But how does a watch like that even exist? Did you make it? And if so, how? Ben laughed, shaking his head. Me? Build this? I might be smart, but not that smart. This thing, it just appeared one day. I woke up, and there it was, on my wrist. Along with some fuzzy memories about how to use it and why it's here. Peter blinked, Incredulous. You woke up one day with an alien watch on your wrist, and you're just fine with that? No questions, no panic. Ben smirked. Oh, I had questions, all right. Still do. But look around, Peter. This world? It's messed up. People turn into giant lizards, and guys like you swing around in tights fighting crime. After a while, you just roll with it. Peter stared at him for a moment before finally letting out a laugh, shaking his head. You've got a point there. So, Ben said, tapping the Omnitrix, do we go with your serum plan, or do we figure out a way for me to get close enough to scan him? Peter sighed. We'll work together. If your watch can do what you say, it might just be the better option. But let's keep the serum ready as a backup. Ben grinned. Sounds like a plan, partner. Peter hesitated, then smirked back. Don't call me partner. Too late, partner, Ben said with a chuckle. Let's go save the world. If we are making the serum, might as well speed up the process. Ben clicked on the watch and transformed. Peter blinked, staring at the tiny alien that had just replaced Ben. The creature barely came up to his knees, with a large head, sharp eyes, and delicate fingers. What is this? What's this little guy supposed to do? The small alien rolled its eyes dramatically. This little guy is a Galvan, the smartest species in the galaxy, and also the creators of the Omnitrix. I'm basically talking genius-level intellect. Peter's jaw dropped. Wait, you're saying the same species that made that insane watch is you? Not exactly me, but let's just say I'm borrowing their brilliance, Ben, now gray matter, quipped, hopping up onto the lab counter. Now, are we going to stand around gawking, or are we going to make this serum before your oversized lizard mentor levels the city? Peter snapped out of his shock and nodded. Right. Let's do this. He handed a clipboard with notes to Gray Matter. Here's the formula Connors and I were working on. We were trying to stabilize the regenerative properties of the serum. Gray Matter scanned the notes with a single glance, then snorted. Amateur work. No offense, but this is child's play for a Galvan. He skittered over to the lab equipment, pointing at different items. Grab that centrifuge. We'll need to re-isolate the serum's base components. And do you have any stabilizing agents? Preferably something organic. Peter grabbed a bottle from a nearby shelf. How about this? It's what Connors used for testing. Gray Matter glanced at the label. Not bad, but we can do better. Hand me that vial of polymerase enzyme over there. And while you're at it, start heating the solution to precisely 96.5 degrees Fahrenheit. Any hotter, and we risk denaturing the proteins. Peter moved quickly, following the instructions. How do you even know all this stuff? You were a regular guy 5 minutes ago. Gray Matter smirked, climbing onto the centrifuge to adjust its settings. Galvan brains operate on a completely different level. Right now, I'm processing more information in a second than you could in a year. No offense. Peter rolled his eyes. Yeah, none taken. Now what? Gray Matter hopped off the centrifuge and gestured toward a microscope. We're going to synthesize a binding agent that'll allow the serum to target specific DNA strands. Once we isolate the reptilian genes, we can neutralize them. Peter leaned over the microscope as Gray Matter adjusted the slides. All right, but how do we test it? We'll use one of the tissue samples Connors left behind, Gray Matter replied, pointing to a freezer. There should be plenty of preserved samples from his earlier experiments. Peter retrieved the samples, carefully placing them in a petri dish. Gray Matter scurried over, pulling a dropper from a nearby tray. Now, we'll add a small amount of our synthesized serum and observe the reaction. The serum was carefully added to the sample under the microscope. Peter peered through the lens, his brow furrowing. It's working. The cells are reverting back to their original state. Gray Matter crossed his arms smugly. Of course it's working. You're in the presence of greatness. Peter looked up, a hint of a smile on his face. All right. Genius. What's next? Gray Matter sighed, his tone turning wistful. If we had the right equipment, we could create a DNA repair gun. It would be much more efficient. Point, shoot, and fix the damaged DNA in seconds. Peter's eyes widened. You can do that? Not here, Grey Matter said, shaking his head. This lab is too basic. We'd need high-grade nanotechnology and a proper molecular synthesis machine. But this serum will do the trick for now. Peter nodded, turning his attention back to the microscope. Okay, so we have the serum. Now we just need to figure out how to get close enough to Connors to inject him. Grey Matter smirked. Leave that to me. Between your webs and my brains, we've got this. Peter smiled back. You know, I never thought I'd be teaming up with an alien genius. But hey, here we are. Grey Matter chuckled. Get used to it, partner. Let's save the day. Peter pulled the mask over his face, completing his transformation into Spider-Man. He glanced at Ben, now back in his human form, and said, All right, genius. What's the plan? Ben tapped the Omnitrix on his wrist. It's simple. I'm going to transform into Wildmutt. His heightened senses will let me track the lizards by the smell of blood and their scent trail after the chaos they caused. If I'm right, and I usually am, the only place they can hide is the New York sewers. Those tunnels are massive and complicated, practically a maze. It's the perfect hiding spot for them. Peter adjusted his web shooters and nodded. Makes sense. The longer we wait, the more people are going to get hurt. Let's move. Ben smirked. Exactly what I was thinking. He turned the Omnitrix dial, scrolling through the silhouettes of various aliens until he found the familiar outline of Wildmutt. All right, time to unleash the beast. He slammed the Omnitrix's core, and a flash of green light engulfed him. Peter stepped back, shielding his eyes. When the light faded, Wildmutt stood in Ben's place, a hulking orange-furred creature with muscular limbs, clawed hands, and a face devoid of eyes, replaced by sensory gills. The alien growled softly, flexing its claws. Peter tilted his head, fascinated. So, no eyes, huh? How do you see? Wildmutt growled in response, motioning to his gills. Peter raised his hands defensively. All right, I get it. No dumb questions. Let's go. Wildmutt sniffed the air, his gills twitching as he locked onto the faint scent of blood and reptilian musk. He let out a low growl and bounded toward the edge of the building, leaping with incredible agility. Peter followed, shooting a web to swing after him. The duo moved swiftly through the city, with Wildmutt leading the way. The alien's powerful legs allowed him to leap from rooftop to rooftop, while Peter swung in graceful arcs. Below them, the city still bore the scars of the lizard's attack: shattered windows, overturned cars, and scorched streets. The sight only fueled their determination. As they approached a manhole cover near an abandoned alley, Wildmutt skidded to a halt, sniffing the air again. He growled and clawed at the cover, signaling Peter. Peter landed beside him. The sewers, huh? Of course. Let me get that. He grabbed the cover and pulled it aside, revealing a dark, damp tunnel below. The stench wafting up made him grimace. Lovely. Wildmutt growled again, dropping into the hole with a soft thud. Peter followed, landing lightly beside him. The sewer was a labyrinth of narrow tunnels and stagnant water, but Wildmutt seemed unfazed. He sniffed the air, his gills flaring, and took off down the nearest tunnel. Peter kept close behind, whispering, "You sure about this? This place is a maze." Wildmutt growled in affirmation, his claws clicking against the wet concrete as he led the way. They moved deeper into the sewer system, the air growing colder and the smell more putrid. After several minutes, Wildmutt stopped abruptly, sniffing the air more intently. He growled low and pointed ahead. Peter squinted into the darkness. "What is it?" "You smell them." Wildmutt nodded, crouching low. The growl in his throat deepened, signaling danger ahead. Peter tensed, readying his web shooters. "All right, big guy. Let's do this." Ben looked at Peter as they crouched in the shadows, observing the unsettling scene before them. More lizard men than they had anticipated were gathered in the large, dimly lit chamber of the sewer. The grotesque creatures hissed and snarled, their claws scraping against the wet concrete floor as they awaited instructions from their leader. Ben leaned closer to Peter and whispered, "There are way more lizard men here than the serum we made can handle." Peter's brows furrowed behind his mask. "Then we'll have to corner them somehow. If we can pin them down, can you do your DNA repair thing?" Ben hesitated, glancing at the glowing Omnitrix on his wrist. "I don't know how many I can manage at once, but we have to try. And I just so happen to know the perfect alien to help us corner them." Before Peter could respond, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the chamber. Both of them froze as Dr. Connors emerged from the shadows, now fully transformed into his lizard form but still wearing the tattered remnants of his lab coat. His presence silenced the other lizard men as he stepped onto an elevated platform, addressing his mutated followers. "My people," Dr. Connors declared, his voice deep and guttural. "Today, we turn this city into our vision of perfection. The weak will be reborn, superior as we are, and the world will finally understand our excellence. After New York, we'll move to the rest of the country, and then the entire Earth." Peter clenched his fists. "I've had enough of this guy's speeches." He leapt from the shadows, flipping through the air and landing on the platform in front of Connors. "Dr. Connors, stop this madness. We can still help you. We can turn you back." The lizard man sneered, his reptilian eyes narrowing. "Help me? No, Spider-Man. I will help the world. They will see what it means to be truly superior." Peter raised his hands, web shooters at the ready. "You're delusional. This ends here. We'll stop you." Connors laughed, a low menacing sound that sent shivers down Ben's spine. "We?" he repeated mockingly. Ben, wearing a mask, stepped out from the shadows, standing beside Peter. "Yeah, we." Connors tilted his head, observing Ben. "Two against an army? How noble! And how futile! Kill them!" With a guttural roar, the lizard men began charging toward the duo. Ben's heart raced as he quickly dialed the Omnitrix. He scrolled through the holographic silhouettes of aliens until he found the one he needed. "Let's heat things up." Slamming the Omnitrix, a brilliant green light engulfed him, forcing the advancing lizard men to shield their eyes. When the light faded, Ben had transformed into Heat Blast, a humanoid alien wreathed in flickering flames. His body was made of molten rock, and fire danced from his head like a living torch. Peter glanced at him and quipped, "Well, you're literally on fire now. I hope you don't burn the sewers down." Heat Blast smirked, his voice now deeper and resonating like crackling embers. "No promises. Let's light this party up." The lizard men hesitated momentarily, wary of the intense heat radiating from Ben's transformed form. But Dr. Connors roared, "What are you waiting for? Attack!" They surged forward. Heat Blast raised his hands, unleashing a wave of fire that spread across the floor, creating a wall of flames that separated several lizard men from the rest of the group. "That should slow them down," he said. Spider-Man leapt into action, webbing up a pair of lizard men that tried to climb over the fire. "Nice work, Hotshot. Now let's keep them contained." Heat Blast launched fireballs at the feet of the advancing creatures, forcing them to scatter. One particularly large lizard man lunged at him, claws outstretched. Heat Blast sidestepped and delivered a fiery uppercut, sending the creature flying into the wall. "Man, these guys don't quit." Meanwhile, Spider-Man used his agility to evade attacks, webbing lizard men to the floor and walls whenever he could. "Ben, can you turn any of these guys back yet?" Heat Blast frowned as he blasted another attacker. "Not until we clear out most of them. I can't scan their DNA while they're all moving around trying to rip our faces off." Peter groaned, dodging a swipe. "Great. Guess we're doing this the hard way." The two worked in tandem, their teamwork seamless despite the chaos. Heat Blast created barriers of fire to funnel the lizard men into tighter spaces, making them easier for Spider-Man to immobilize with his webs. When three lizard men broke through the flames, Heat Blast slammed his hands together, creating a shockwave of heat that knocked them off their feet. Spider-Man landed beside him, panting. "Okay, that was awesome." "Thanks," Heat Blast replied, launching another fireball. "But we're not done yet." From the platform, Dr. Connors watched with growing frustration. "Enough of this. You cannot stop evolution." He leapt from the platform, landing with a thud that shook the ground. His tail whipped out, nearly catching Spider-Man, who narrowly avoided it with a backflip. "Ben," Peter called out, "you deal with the small fry. I've got the big guy." Heat Blast nodded, igniting his hands again. "Be careful, Parker." As Spider-Man engaged Connors in a fierce one-on-one fight, Heat Blast focused on containing the remaining Lizardmen. He created a ring of fire around the largest group, forcing them to huddle together. "All right, time to cool off." Slamming his fists into the ground, he intensified the heat, melting a section of the concrete floor and creating a makeshift pit. The Lizardmen roared in frustration, unable to climb out. Finally, Heat Blast turned to check on Peter. The battle was far from over, but they were holding their own. For now. Heat Blast stood amidst the chaos, flames flickering softly around him as he focused on the task at hand. With a deep breath, he pressed the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. It glowed a bright green, sending a wave of light across the chamber. The device emitted a robotic voice. "DNA repair protocol initiated." Heat Blast glanced at the swirling energy and said, "Repair as many as you can." The Omnitrix responded with a pulse of energy, releasing beams of green light that enveloped the Lizardmen one by one. The creatures roared and thrashed, but the light continued to work its magic. Slowly, their grotesque reptilian features began to fade. Scales melted away to reveal skin, claws retracted into fingers, and snarls turned into gasps of relief as the Lizardmen were restored to their human forms. Ben watched with a mix of satisfaction and exhaustion. The Omnitrix buzzed louder, working overtime to reverse the mutations. Peter, still fending off Dr. Connors, glanced back and saw the transformation taking place. "Ben, it's working. Keep it up." Heat Blast nodded but didn't reply, concentrating on the repair process. Soon, the once chaotic sewer was filled with disoriented but grateful people, many collapsing to the ground in shock. The Omnitrix finally dimmed, its glow fading as it completed the last transformation. The robotic voice chimed again, "DNA repair complete." Dr. Connors, now realizing his plan was unraveling, let out a furious roar. "No. You fools. You've undone everything." In desperation, he grabbed the Gonali device from a nearby table and turned to his two remaining Lizardmen. "We must retreat. This isn't over." With a mighty leap, Connors and his two mutated allies disappeared into the shadows of the sewer tunnels. Ben tried to follow, but the Omnitrix let out a warning beep and turned red, signaling it had entered its recharge mode. He reverted back to human form, collapsing to his knees as fatigue washed over him. Peter rushed to his side, pulling him up gently. "Ben, are you okay?" Ben nodded weakly. "Yeah, just tired. The Omnitrix takes a lot out of me when I push it like that." Peter looked in the direction where Dr. Connors had fled. "He's got the Gonali device. If he uses it, all of New York could turn into lizard people." Ben gritted his teeth, frustrated that he couldn't keep going. "You have to stop him, Peter. Don't let him get away." Peter nodded, placing a hand on Ben's shoulder. "Rest up. I'll take care of it." With that, Spider-Man fired a webline and swung into the tunnels, chasing after Dr. Connors and his remaining Lizardmen. Ben watched him disappear into the shadows, silently hoping Peter would succeed. He leaned back against the cold wall of the sewer, breathing heavily and willing himself to recover quickly. The chaos of the city night was broken by the roar of mutated lizards rampaging through the streets. Dr. Connors and his two remaining Lizardmen emerged from the sewer tunnels, their scaled bodies glistening under the streetlights. They tore through anything in their path. Cars were overturned, lampposts bent, and terrified civilians scattered in every direction. "Move! Move!" a patrol officer shouted into his radio. "We have 3 hostiles heading toward Oscorp Tower, requesting immediate backup." The officers opened fire, their bullets ricocheting harmlessly off the Lizardmen's thick hides. Dr. Connors turned, his voice filled with contempt. Fools! You can't stop evolution. With a swipe of his clawed hand, he sent a parked car flying into a barricade, forcing the officers to retreat. The trio continued their charge toward Oscorp Tower, their objective clear. Above, Spider-Man swung through the city skyline, following their path of destruction. Peter's voice crackled over his communicator, connecting to the police scanner. Hang tight, officers. I've got this covered. As Spider-Man closed the distance, he fired a webline to snag one of the smaller lizard men by the tail. The creature roared in fury, thrashing against the sticky webbing. Hey, big guy. Spider-Man quipped. Didn't anyone tell you tailgating is rude? He yanked hard, throwing the lizard man into a nearby dumpster. Dr. Connors glanced over his shoulder, hissing in frustration. Keep moving. We must reach the tower. The remaining lizard man lunged at Spider-Man, swiping with razor-sharp claws. Peter flipped mid-air, narrowly dodging the attack. Whoa. Easy there, buddy. I just had this suit dry cleaned. He fired another webline, binding the lizardman's legs together. 2 down, 1 2. Before he could finish, Dr. Connors leaped onto a building, scaling it with ease. Spider-Man, you're too late, he bellowed. Peter groaned. Why do the bad guys always head for the tallest building? It's like they're trying to get on the cover of Villain Weekly. He swung after them, landing on the side of Oscorp Tower. The lizard men had already breached the entrance, smashing through the lobby and heading for the stairs. Spider-Man followed, weaving through the debris.
And that concludes this episode. If you enjoyed it, I'd seriously love it if you guys could leave a like on the video, as it genuinely helps out so much, and it keeps me going, plus it takes only 1 second. That said, have a wonderful day. See you in the next one.